who for 2 years evaded apprehension, didn't have to answer for his crimes, had no appreciation or concern about Harmony being missing because he already knew
Here I
she was
am.
dead. For 2 years before the Manchester Police Department initiated their search for Harmony Montgomery, that man got away with murder. His only concern, other than Harmony's body being found, was to keep his wife, Kayla Montgomery, from coming in here and telling you all what he did to her. His heinous actions, his cover-up, what she witnessed. For 2 years, he got away with butchering a 5-year-old girl. And that defendant made sure that Harmony would never be found, that she'd be gone without a trace. You'll see, he believed that if there was no body, there could be no evidence of the horrible things that he did to her, and he would get away with it. And so he went to great lengths to cover up his crime, to cover up beating Harmony to death for a bathroom accident. He went to great lengths to cover up his conduct. Beating Harmony to death because she soiled herself.
He's not there.
And he thought that if he destroyed the evidence, what remained of Harmony, if he destroyed Harmony, he could never be charged. He was careless in this meticulous cover-up. He made mistakes. We're going to hear about those mistakes because it's evidence of his crimes. It's evidence of what he did. So let's talk about the evidence in this case. On December 7th, 2019, the defendant beat Harmony to death because she had a bathroom accident, something she had no control over. She'd peed her pants, and he murdered her in a series of attacks, of brutal strikes that began that morning in the car that she was living out of and ended in the Burger King parking lot that you all saw yesterday on The View. He carried her body with him for months. For months, he carried her body. And he discarded her with zero appreciation for the life that he'd taken, just a fear of being caught. And in the months that followed, he beat, he injured, he terrorized the only witness to his crime, the only person that could come in here and tell you what he did. She was his loose end, Kayla Montgomery, his wife. He conditioned Kayla through force and through threats with the purpose of making sure that she would never come in here and tell you what she'd seen, what he did. Beating Harmony to death for another accident, destroying her body, freezing her, thawing her, squeezing the liquid out of her, compressing her body into a bag like this one.
Thank you all for being here.
Compressing her body into a bag like this one and filling it with lime to further decompose her. Unspeakable things.
Oh my God, that bad.
And this is what he did to the only witness he left alive. She was beaten, she was conditioned, and she was living in fear. She was in a nightmare with no end while he dragged around Harmony's body for months. And I want to pause here for just a moment.
Wow.
I want to thank all of you for being here. This is going to be a lengthy trial. You're going to hear many difficult things. That's not lost on us. It's not lost on the attorneys that are in this case. So thank you for taking the time out of your lives to come here and listen to the evidence, to judge the evidence. It's necessary. It's a necessary function. And if you listen to the evidence, if you keep an open mind, and if you follow Judge Messer's instructions, you'll understand the timeline of Harmony's death, of the cover-up. You'll understand the horrible things that that defendant did, why he assaulted why he murdered, why he terrorized. And after he was done with all of this, why he destroyed evidence, why he lied, why he blocked his friends and family, why he manipulated his wife into doing terrible things to hide his crime, to hide the victim that he'd murdered. So let's talk about the victim that he murdered, the victim that he made sure couldn't come into this courtroom and tell you the horrible things that he did to her. Her name is Harmony Montgomery.
What a beautiful picture.
And there are 4 descriptions that you're going to hear of Harmony during the course of this trial, some of them horrible. Harmony was born to the defendant, Adam Montgomery, and her mother, Crystal Sorey. She was born on June 7th of 2014. She was a daughter. She was a sister. She was a Minnie Mouse fan. She was a fun-loving girl that loved being a big sister. She was just 5 years old when the defendant brutally murdered her. During the course of her brief life, she was a fun-loving girl. She was someone that defied all odds. She spent most of her life with Tim and Michelle Rafferty, her foster parents, who she called Daddy and Mommy Michelle. And those odds that she defied. When Tim and Michelle got Harmony, when they got custody of her, she was just 2 months old. And Michelle was told she's not going to live past 7 months, told that she had learning disabilities. Still, you'll hear that Harmony was an intelligent girl. She was a curious child. She was a child that ran with other children, played with them. She was potty trained at a very early age. At a very early age, she was potty trained, and that'll become important as we progress throughout this trial. So keep that
That's
in mind.
interesting.
Harmony was potty trained at a very early age. She wasn't someone that was bound by limitations. And you'll hear that when she lived with her mommy, Michelle, and her mommy, Crystal, she was thriving. She was thriving in school. She was thriving with her peers. She was a child like any other. She was full of life. But that's just one description of Harmony, and I told you there are more. The defendant got custody of Harmony in February of 2019. At that time, she was only 4 years old. And the second description is darker. It comes from the 10 days before the defendant murdered her, and we'll talk about that more as we go along. The 10 days before he murdered her. In the second description, not the one where Harmony's thriving. In this one, she's scared. She's skinny. She's constantly exhausted. And she's bruised. At this point in Harmony's brief life, she's not able to control her bladder. She's not able to control her bowel movements. She's soiling herself. And during this period, the time when the defendant had her, those 10 days, she went from living in their home on Guilford Street at 77 Guilford Street to being homeless and living in a car, in the family's car. And when they were living in that car, those bathroom accidents got worse and worse, and they came more and more often. And you'll hear about the defendant's rage, this rage of the defendants that was building and building with each and every accident. And each time Harmony had an accident in that 10-day period, the defendant would strike her. That rage only growing, adding to that fear. And the next two descriptions come from the actions that the defendant took after he had murdered Harmony, after he beat her to death. You'll hear that she went from this little girl full of life, a girl that radiated happiness, that radiated joy, to a scared girl, broken, bruised. And from there, she went to the dead girl in the duffel bag. And after that, she went to the dead girl rotting in the ceiling. the ceiling that the defendant slept under for months. For months, as Harmony's body fluid, her blood, leaked through that duffel bag and was absorbed into that ceiling, he slept under her. That's what he did to her. That's what he made Harmony. His actions. Remember that as we go along. This case is about his actions. And those are the descriptions of Harmony. That's what the defendant made her before he disposed of her. Harmony was just 5 years old when the defendant beat her to death, but her story continues long after her death with the gruesome actions that the defendant took, the things that he did to her, the places that he took her. 3 people witnessed Harmony's death, her murder, and they survived. Her 2 younger brothers, one just 5 months old, the other 2 years old, and her stepmother, Kayla Montgomery. Back then, Kayla was the defendant's wife. She was mother of his 2 small children, his 2 boys. They met when they were kids and they married in 2017. And eventually they moved to Manchester, New Hampshire, and they lived at the home on 77 Guilford Street. The defendant stayed home with the children and Kayla worked. She was a cashier at Dunkin' Donuts. And during the 6 months leading up to Harmony's murder, their marriage was on the rocks. But Kayla tried to make it work. She wanted to make it work for her family. She wanted to make it work so that she didn't lose another person that she loved. But this case, it's not about Kayla. It's not about what Kayla did. It's not about what Kayla didn't do. Remember that as we go along. It's about what the defendant did. Kayla was the defendant's loose end. She was the witness to his crimes. She was the witness to his confession to an assault that took place against Harmony by the defendant in July of 2019. She was witness to Harmony's murder. She was witness to the defendant compressing Harmony into bag, smaller bag, compressing her more and more over the months that he had her, adding lime to that bag. And she was witness to the defendant disposing of Harmony. She was the witness that was left alive. So let's talk about that first event, the assault on Harmony from July of 2019. That summer, the summer of 2019, was Harmony's first time living with the defendant. It was her first summer with the defendant. And again, they lived at this home on Guilford Street. You'll hear that they lived there with Helen Montgomery, the defendant's grandmother, and the defendant's uncle, Kevin. And Helen and Kevin left that summer. They went down to Florida, and there Helen had a triple bypass surgery, and Kevin stayed with her. He accompanied her to help her in her recovery. And you'll hear that Kevin was gone for 3 weeks. And when Kevin left, when he left that home, Harmony was uninjured. No bruises, uninjured. But when he came back, Harmony had a large black eye. A black eye that was so swollen that the profile of her face had changed. It was horrible.
Poor baby.
This girl was bruised. She was injured. And her face was swollen. And when Kevin walked through that door, he saw Harmony. And this immediately stood out to him. This was his niece, his great niece. And the defendant was standing next to Harmony, and he said, "Harmony, what did you do? What happened to you?" And Harmony didn't even have time to answer. The defendant interrupted and said, "She didn't do nothing. I bashed her around this house. I beat the dog shit out of her." That's what he told his uncle about Harmony, what happened to her, how she got that injury. "I beat her. I did that." The defendant in this case. You'll hear that this shocked Kevin. It frightened him. And that was the last night he stayed in the house. He never went back there. He spent that night in his house and he got out of there. And in the time that followed, he did everything he could to get Harmony help. He contacted authorities. He contacted DCYF, contacted Child Services. You'll hear that he was unsuccessful. This assault from July of 2019, that's separate and apart from the murder charges, different incident. So I want to talk about the murder now. And to do that, again, we have to talk about the 10-day period before the defendant brutally murdered Harmony. Those 10 days where Harmony had major life changes.
Brace
You'll
yourself.
hear that the family went from living in that home on Guilford Street to being evicted and living in their silver Chrysler Sebring. And while they were living in the Sebring, while they were living in the Sebring, they parked in that parking lot we saw yesterday at Colonial Village, the apartments. They stayed there in their car. Harmony, at this point, had another major life change. She started having accidents. She started peeing herself. She was incontinent. She couldn't control when she had to go to the bathroom. She was peeing herself and she was pooping herself. This girl that prided herself on being able to control her body, basic functions. She was a big girl, but she started having these issues with her bladder, with her bowel movements. And you'll hear that when they moved into that vehicle, when they started living there, those accidents got worse and they came more often. She wasn't letting the defendant know when she had to go, and she was creating a mess each time. And that rage, the defendant's rage that you'll hear about in this case, grew and grew. And he would hit her, he would strike her each time she had one of those accidents. And that was Harmony's life. For 10 days. For 10 days, she lived in a car. For 10 days, she had bathroom accidents. For 10 days, she was unable to control her own body. For 10 days, she was in fear. She was scared because each time she had one of these accidents, the defendant would hit her. The defendant that you saw 2 days ago, a large man, he would hit this. She was 35 pounds in June of 2019. This again is in December. She was tiny, and he would hit her. He would strike her with a fist over something she had no control over. And those accidents were getting worse, and they were coming more often. And she was so bruised before her murder that the defendant had to hide her when he went out in public. He would literally take a blanket and cover her up so that she couldn't be seen, and that so no one would know what he had done to her. No one would see those bruises. And that brings us to December 7th of 2019. That day began like any other day for Harmony. They were living in that car. She woke up and she was scared. She was scared because she'd wet herself. She didn't want the defendant to know. She'd wet herself first thing that morning, and she was afraid. And just as she feared what happened, the defendant smelled what she had done. And for that, he hit her. He struck her in the face, and he drove his car. He continued on with his day as if he had done nothing. He struck this little girl in her face, on the side of her head. He continued on as if nothing happened. He drove to the methadone clinic, the clinic that you saw yesterday on The View. And there he and Kayla took turns getting their treatment. You'll hear that Kayla went in first, the defendant stayed in the car, and then the defendant went in. And when the defendant came back to the car, he was hungry. And so he started driving the family's car to the Burger King that you saw yesterday on The View. And as he was pulling out of that parking lot, he smelled something. He smelled that Harmony had had another accident. And that rage that had been building inside of him, it was there. Remember, he was still upset about the earlier accident, that first thing in the morning. And he looked back at Harmony as he was driving, and he said, "Really, Harmony? Again?" And he began striking her. As he was driving, holding onto the wheel, he began punching this little girl repeatedly for something she had no control over. He struck her blow after blow after blow to the side of her small head. And he didn't stop. And you'll hear me say that. He didn't stop. He didn't stop with that first barrage of assaults, of strikes to her small head. He continued. And when he pulled up to a light, he continued hitting her, hit after hit to her small head, blow after blow. Now, during this barrage of strikes, Kayla, who was in the passenger seat, seated next to the defendant, seated in front of Harmony, she put a hand up. She tried to block what this defendant was doing to Harmony. She tried to stop him. You'll hear that in that moment, he looked at her as if to say, "You're next." And she was scared. And she looked forward and she put her hand down, and those strikes to Harmony continued. And when he pulled up to another light as he was driving to that Burger King parking lot, he continued striking her. And after that last strike, he looked at Kayla and he said, "I think I really hurt her this time. This time. I think I really hurt her this time. I think I did something." And he didn't stop. He continued with his drive. Pulled into that parking lot at Burger King and he ordered his food. He ordered his food and he ate. He didn't stop to check on Harmony. He didn't look back at her. He didn't show any concern for this innocent little girl, the child he'd just beaten. He ordered his food and he ate. And he didn't stop. You'll hear that at that time, after that last blow, after that last strike to her small head, she began moaning and making a gurgling sound. Sounds that continued on and off for several minutes. And he didn't show any concern. Ate his food, and he continued driving towards the Colonial apartment parking lot. And while he was there, he did drugs for 20 to 25 minutes, showing no concern for the child that was dying in his backseat just feet away from him. And Kayla, you'll hear, was too scared to look back. She couldn't look back. She was frozen. She was terrified to see what he had done to this small child. She could just hear that moaning, those gargling sounds, sounds that eventually stopped. After the defendant ordered his food and he was driving back, he did his drugs, listening to those noises, not showing any concern. He pulled into the Colonial Village parking lot and he did drugs for 20 to 25 minutes. He ate his food and he did his drugs, and Harmony slowly died. And when he was done with that, still showing no concern for Harmony, he pulled out of the parking lot where they'd been living. And when he made it to the intersection of Webster and Elm, which you saw in the view yesterday, his car died. It died just as Harmony had died several minutes before. The defendant realized they were going to have to abandon that vehicle. And so he started removing items, getting the kids out, shaking Harmony, telling her to wake up. She wasn't responding. She couldn't. She was dead. He had done that. And when he realized that Harmony was no longer alive, that he'd murdered her, he grabbed a duffel bag Remember, they were living in that car. All of their items, all of their possessions were in that car. He grabbed the duffel bag and he stuffed Harmony's body inside. And remember those descriptions that I told you about Harmony, what you'd hear throughout this trial. That's when Harmony became the dead girl in the duffel bag. He did that to her. That's what he made her. The defendant stuffed her into that bag and he went on about his day as if nothing happened. But Harmony's murder, that was only the beginning. And remember what I told you, this case, it's about the actions of the defendant. They didn't stop after he murdered Harmony. That was the beginning of his conduct. His actions didn't end when he brutally murdered Harmony. You'll hear about how he carried her for months, scheming, plotting, coming up with a plan of how to get rid of Harmony somewhere she would never be found. And they went back to the Colonial Village parking lot that afternoon. They had a friend there, a friend who let them stay in his Audi. And you'll hear that friend brought them dinner for 2 nights, the 2 nights they stayed there, December 7th and 8th. He brought them dinner, and notably, he didn't see Harmony with them. He didn't see Harmony because she was in that duffel bag, the duffel bag that he was moving between the trunk of that Audi SUV and the ground outside. At night, he would keep her in the ground between his car, the Audi SUV, and the dumpsters that you saw yesterday that you walked around in that parking lot. He kept her on the ground because it was cold outside. Remember, this was in December, and he wanted to keep her body cold. From the Colonial Village parking lot, they went to Kayla's mother's home, and they stayed there for the rest of the month. She picked them up in her van, and that's where Harmony stayed for several days while the defendant looked for somewhere more suitable to keep her. And he found something more suitable. In the entryway of Christina Lubin, Kayla's mother's home, he found this open cooler. And he stored her there for much of the remainder of his stay. And they left that home on December 30th. And they went to the Families in Transition shelter. It was at the Families in Transition shelter that the defendant began to discuss disposing of Harmony, getting rid of her. He believed that if there was no body to find, there would be no evidence of what he'd done, and he would get away with this heinous crime. And so he began to discuss disposing of her. While he was there, he moved Harmony from the closet of that room. He moved her to the ceiling. He removed that vent cover and he stuffed her body inside. And that's when Harmony became the dead girl rotting in the ceiling that he slept under for months. Now, the defendant faced another problem at the Fit shelter. Harmony's body began to rot. It began to smell. He was storing her body in the ceiling above his room, and the heat was on. And the heat was causing her body to decompose more and more by the day, to rot more and more by the day. And it was smelling. And other tenants, other people that lived there were complaining about those smells. So he had to take her body out of that ceiling. And he brought it to the bathroom and he compressed it. He compressed and contorted her body into this bag, into a bag like this. And he put it back up there, back in the ceiling. And when he was taking her body down, when it was still in the duffel bag, before he'd added trash bags and put her inside a bag like this one, she was leaking. Her liquids were pouring through that duffel bag.
The mom's place. Oh my God.
And investigators followed up with the fit shelter. They went to that room. They looked in the ceiling. And when they took that vent cover off, they immediately smelled decomposition, a smell associated with dead bodies, rotting bodies. They smelled decomp. Still present 2 years after the defendant had removed Harmony's body from the ceiling.
Disgusting.
And they saw deep stains in the drywall
What an animal.
where Harmony's blood had been absorbed. That blood was tested. It was sent to a lab in Florida and tested. And that lab in Florida confirmed that that blood was Harmony. Something the defendant missed. Remember, he was careless in his meticulous cover-up. He made mistakes. That's going to be one of them. That blood in the ceiling, Harmony's blood in the ceiling, all that remained of Harmony, the defendant made sure of that. And surrounding that blood, surrounding this blood, surrounding what was left of Harmony, the defendant's fingerprints, his palm prints, frozen there for time. So at the shelter, the defendant had a problem. He was living in a shelter. He didn't have access to a freezer, and Harmony's body was beginning to rot and stink, and it was getting worse and worse by the day. People were complaining. This wasn't good for him. And it was around this time he started working at the Portland Pie Company, which used to be here in town, since closed. He worked there for just over a month. He was a dishwasher and a cook. And that CMC bag, the one that looked like this, that accompanied him to work. It stood out to people because he placed it in the freezer during his shifts. He brought it with him regularly to work, and he stored it in a freezer where the company kept food, ingredients. People saw him bringing that in and out regularly. They couldn't have imagined what that bag contained, but they saw it. And after they left the fit shelter, after the defendant left the shelter, he moved into an apartment on Union Street. And it was in the Union Street apartment that he began to discuss dismembering Harmony, squishing her, further contorting her body. He discussed using a saw to cut her up. He discussed using lime to further decompose her so that there would be nothing to find. Remember, he believed that if there was no body, there could be no evidence, and he would get away with this horrible thing that he'd done, beating this little girl to death. And it was in the bathroom of his Union Street apartment that he compressed Harmony. Already in that CMC bag, filling that CMC bag, he compressed her further, and he added lime to the bag, thinking that it would eat away at anything left of her. He spent most of the day in that bathroom compressing Harmony. He took her out of the CMC bag and he placed her in the tub. She was frozen at that point, so he turned the hot water on and ran it over her so that he can manipulate her body, further compress her. Kayla walked into the bathroom as he was doing this. She saw what he was doing. She saw Harmony. Harmony at that point was skin and bones. And she saw the defendant squeezing Harmony, squishing Harmony, trying to remove the liquids that remained from her small body and down the drain of the tub. When Kayla walked into that bathroom, he told her to help him. You'll hear that Kayla obeyed. She held Harmony's arm while the defendant used the scissors to cut off Harmony's clothes. But this was too much for Kayla. She couldn't take what she was seeing. what the defendant was doing, the sick and grotesque things that he was doing to this child's body. And so she went to the living room to be with her two sons, to make sure that they didn't walk in and see what he was doing. So in that bathroom, the defendant shut the door behind her. And that once bulging CMC bag, the bag that Harmony's body filled, he compressed it enough to add much of a 40-pound bag of lime. And he took breaks from the horror show in that bathroom. And during one of the breaks from working on Harmony's body, he said, I can put her in pieces. I can put her in pieces. I can cut her up. And while he was working in that bathroom, working on Harmony, he clogged the drain. Remember that as we go along. He clogged the drain. While he was squeezing her, getting the liquids out, he clogged the drains of the bathroom. And investigators learned that the defendant went to Home Depot on February 26th, just 6 days after they moved into that apartment. He went to Home Depot where he bought a saw, a backup saw blade, diamond cutting saw blade, a backup battery, and lime. That was on February 26th, just 6 days after he moved into that apartment. On February 27th, he placed a work order to unclog his drain. Now, it was around this time that the defendant began to suspect that Kayla was working with the police, trying to give them evidence to put him away for what he'd done to Harmony. He was suspicious of her, and he was pulling out outlets. He was pulling out light bulbs, light sockets, thinking that there were listening devices planted to get him for what he'd done to Harmony. And it was around this time that he started beating Kayla. He started threatening her that if she reported him, he would kill her. And that if he went to jail for what he did, he'd have someone else kill her. The abuse was constant and it came regularly. And Kayla documented the abuse as shown here. Less than a week after the horror show in that Union Street apartment bathroom, the defendant disposed of what remained of Harmony, what was left of her. He was meticulous in making sure that nothing came back on him. He enlisted help from friends. He asked a friend to get him a U-Haul van. A U-Haul van back then was cheaper than a rental car. You'll hear that this friend, he helped. He got him the van. The defendant at the time rented a hotel room so that he could leave the hotel room and dispose of Harmony. And when he came to bring the defendant the keys to the van with his girlfriend saw a CMC bag that was protruding from the hotel room's mini fridge, and that stood out to her. And when the friend gave the defendant the keys to that U-Haul van, the defendant said, I fucked up, and he repeated it over and over. I fucked up, me, the defendant, I fucked up. But he couldn't say how. He couldn't say what he'd done to fuck up. That was on March 3rd of 2020. The defendant left in the middle of the night, headed south. And when the defendant left, he told Kayla that he wasn't going to tell her where he was going to dump Harmony, where he was going to dispose of her. He didn't want her to have that information that she could later use against him. He was in control. He had all the pieces. He wasn't going to have someone know where evidence of the girl that he had brutally beaten was. He made sure that he was the only person that knew what he'd done with her. Remember, he believed that if there was no body, he could never be charged. He could never be charged with this heinous crime. And when he left the hotel room that night, he headed south to Mass, and he made another mistake. That U-Haul van that he rented, he blew through tolls on the Tobin Bridge, and a camera captured that van. You'll hear about the many searches for Harmony Montgomery, involving multiple states, Maine, Mass, New Hampshire, involving multiple agencies, both state and federal, thousands of man hours looking for this little girl. And you'll hear the defendant's words. You'll hear him on a recorded call during one of those searches telling his friend that investigators were wasting their time looking for this little girl that he brutally murdered. They were wasting their time. The defendant's words, you'll hear that. After disposing of Harmony, the defendant realized he had one loose end, his wife, Kayla. And so he conditioned her. The abuse got worse over those months and months. He beat her. She was a loose end to him and nothing more. Now, you'll hear that Kayla lied. She stuck to a story that the defendant gave her. She was scared at what would happen to her at the hands of the man she witnessed beat this small child to death and drag her body around for months. She's gone to prison for those lies. She's gone to prison for those lies. And since then, she's helped investigators. She's helped investigators find proof that Harmony is dead. That blood in the ceiling with the defendant's fingerprints. She spoke to investigators and police for hours upon hours over multiple days. Statements that gave investigators evidence that they wouldn't have without her. Gave a mother some sense of closure, knowing that her daughter's dead, still out there somewhere, but not suffering, not anymore. Now, Kayla's testimony is important. She saw what happened. She felt it. She lived it. She's still living it. But the reason you only have one witness to the defendant's crime is because he killed the other, the witness that he couldn't control, the witness that he couldn't manipulate. But even though Kayla's testimony is important, this case doesn't rest solely on her shoulders. You're going to hear about the forensic evidence, the physical evidence that corroborates what she says, about the surveillance footage. You'll hear and see evidence that corroborates Kayla in ways that she never could have imagined. You'll hear and see evidence that shows you who killed Harmony, who had motive to destroy her after he killed her. And you'll hear some of the defendant's lies for yourself. You'll hear about the absurd story he told to evade apprehension, that he gave Harmony back to her mother in Mass the day before Thanksgiving in 2019. That was his excuse. That was his lie. But in those 2 years where he didn't have to answer for this crime, where he thought he was free and clear of what he'd done, he told someone that he trusted what he really thought of Harmony. Told her that she was evil, that she did evil things. He told her that Harmony was a constant reminder of her mother, Crystal Sorey, who he hated. And he told her that he hated Harmony to his core. That's what he said in secret about the innocent child that he'd beaten to death. The helpless girl that he beat because she soiled herself. He hated Harmony to his core, and the evidence is going to show that he did everything to destroy Harmony after he beat her, to hide his crime, to hide evidence of what he'd done. And for what the defendant did, he's been charged with multiple crimes that the clerk read to you yesterday in open court. And the evidence will prove that he's guilty of each and every one of them. He's guilty of the second-degree assault for beating Harmony in that July 2019 incident, for bashing her around the house, for beating her off every wall in the house, for kicking the dog shit out of her, for causing the black eye, causing that injury to Harmony. Just like he's guilty of reckless second-degree murder for beating Harmony to death in the Chrysler Sebring on December 7th, 2019. He's guilty of falsifying physical evidence, for mutilating Harmony's corpse, for destroying her, for putting her somewhere she would never be found. And he's guilty of tampering with a witness, for beating Kayla, for threatening her, for compelling her to stick to the story that he gave her. And he's guilty of abuse of a corpse, for his conduct in the Union Street apartment bathroom, for compressing Harmony into that small bag, adding lime to it. Those are the crimes the defendant in this case committed. That's what he's guilty of. The defendant committed multiple violent crimes against a small child, a helpless child. In December 2019, he assaulted and he murdered because of that rage, his rage. He destroyed Harmony so that he could never be caught. And he beat Kayla for control. That's what the defendant did to his victim in this case. And at the conclusion of this trial, that's what we'll ask you to find him guilty of.
Whenever you're ready.
She deserves so much better. All right, what is the defense going to try to peddle here? What are they going to try to peddle here? What can you possibly say to that?
You were just left with that picture of Harmony, and seeing that picture is heartbreaking, knowing that Harmony is dead. But Adam Montgomery did not kill Harmony. Adam Montgomery did not beat Harmony in the head as he approached the Burger King drive-thru. Adam Montgomery did not cause Harmony's death. Kayla Montgomery was the last person to see Harmony alive and know how Harmony died. But she didn't come clean with Adam. She didn't come clean with the police. And she will not come clean with you. She is still lying about the cause of Harmony's death. Even though Kayla now has her deal with the state, she continues to lie. The only reason Kayla has to lie now is to protect herself. The only reason she has to lie and point the finger at Adam is because the truth points the finger at her. The only reason Kayla has to lie to make Harmony's death so brutal and foul by Adam is to hide that Adam was protecting Kayla, his wife, and the mother of his kids. Now look, I'm not pretending that Adam isn't innocent here. Adam is not an innocent here. He and Kayla covered up Harmony's death. He's not an innocent here. He and Kayla moved Harmony's body from place to place to keep it hidden. And Adam is not an innocent here. He and Kayla put her body in a shower to wash her remains of the fluids of decomposition and then permanently hid her remains. You can and should find him guilty of those crimes. But in committing those crimes and sticking with a story that protected his wife, Adam set himself up for Kayla's betrayal. Her betrayal to accuse him in the most vile way possible of what he did not do. To accuse him of brutally killing his, not her, daughter, when she knew that was not what happened. The evidence that will show you that Adam did not brutally murder Harmony will come mostly and very reluctantly from his accuser, Kayla. Not from other witnesses or the physical evidence, but by showing that Kayla's lies continue. And the only one protected by those lies is her. Because only she, other than an infant and a toddler, was around when Harmony died. Only she knows the truth, and only she has benefited from all the lies she has told. November 27, 2019, a day before Thanksgiving. Adam, Kayla, Adam's daughter, Harmony, toddler son, Seamus, infant son, Declan were evicted from their home on Guildford Street in Manchester. They began living out of their Chrysler Sebring. In the following week, when Adam was running around trying to make money to get them out of their situation, Kayla was left cooped up in that seemingly increasingly smaller by the minute car with a 5-year-old child, not her own, a 2-year-old toddler, and a less than 1-year infant, all of whom needed attention, all of whom needed to move around, and none of whom were doing well being cooped up in that car. And Kayla didn't do well either. Adam was off doing his own thing, and Kayla was stuck. Harmony's body was not discovered lifeless in the car at that busy intersection you saw yesterday. It was not discovered at that intersection in the middle of the day on December 7, 2019, as Kayla now claims. Both Adam and Kayla discovered Harmony's cold, lifeless body much earlier in the dark of night behind Colonial Village when Adam returned from his business. Kayla made Adam feel responsible. She claimed not to know what happened. It was Adam's fault for everything they were going through. It was not her fault, she insisted. She thought all the kids were asleep. He had to protect her. He had to protect their children. If anyone found out, their children would be taken. Adam stood by Kayla, and together they covered up Harmony's death. By that decision, Adam became so intertwined in Harmony's death that he could not get out. Neither Adam nor Kayla knew what to do, so they put the decision off. Adam placed Harmony's body in a duffel bag from the car and placed that duffel bag in the trunk. And Harmony's body was in that bag in the trunk of the car when it broke down at the intersection of Webster and Elm. They had driven off from the Colonial Village apartments to try and figure out what to do, where to put Harmony's body. But then the car broke down. When it did, Adam grabbed the bag from the trunk and carried Harmony's body away from the intersection to the parking lot at Colonial Village. From there, as you'll hear, Harmony's body was moved from place to place until Adam and Kayla finally figured out a plan to hide the body permanently. When asked, Adam and Kayla told people that Harmony was back with her biological mom in Massachusetts. Let's now move forward 2 years. December 2021. This was 2 years after Harmony's death and close to a year after Kayla and Adam had separated. The police were now investigating Harmony's disappearance. They found Kayla and asked her where to find Adam and where Harmony was. Kayla gave the lie she and Adam had used to explain why Harmony was no longer living with them after Harmony died in December of 2019. That Adam had returned Harmony to her mother in Massachusetts. Kayla also told the police that she believed Adam was in Maine. After speaking with the police, she contacts Adam and she told him, quote, "You need to come down here." She told him he needed to return to New Hampshire and deal with the police because she was not going to deal with all this by herself. Adam did what Kayla told him to do and returned. But unfortunately for Kayla, he also brought another woman, Kelsey Small, with him. Adam met up with Kayla and they talked about what to do. That New Year's Eve 2021, Kayla talked to the police again. This time, it was at the Manchester police station. She again gave the lie that protected her, insisting Adam took Harmony to her mother's, and that was all that she knew. And after well over an hour of talking, as Kayla stuck with this lie, the police gave her time alone to think, to write down what she wanted to say, just in case it was too difficult to verbally speak about. And Kayla did take that time alone to think and to write. And this is what she wrote. Quote, "I don't know what happened. No clue. I just know he left to bring her to meet her mom, to give Harmony to her after he dropped me off at work in the morning." And she wrote, "You need to get him to talk. He won't tell me anything. So he obviously did something and isn't saying anything to me." Kayla was ready to point the finger at Adam, but only in a way that protected herself. 5 days later, January 5th, Kayla was arrested anyway, but for something different than what the police had wanted to talk with her about. Instead of being arrested in relation to Harmony's disappearance, she was arrested for something else, what eventually became a theft charge. But she knew the arrest was to pressure her. While in jail, Kayla had more time to think and to scheme. How was she going to get out of this mess that she was in? She knew that the police thought she had information about what happened to Harmony. And she knew that the walls were closing in. Kayla also knew that pointing the finger at Adam was worth something. And pointing the finger would help get her out of this mess. And she thought about how to use Adam to get out of it. What I am holding up for you is defense's G for identification. This plastic bag contains a note. This note is written by Kayla, and it reflects what she wanted for a bargain. A few weeks after her incarceration, this note was found in Kayla's cell. And in her musings, she writes of her willingness to, quote, betray Adam. Not to finally be free of Adam, not to finally be safe from him, not to tell the truth, to betray, meaning stab him in the back. But she also wrote of her longing to be alone with him one more time, to kiss, to make love if she could. She didn't write of fearing to be alone with him. She did not write of any fear that Adam would hurt or kill her for her betrayal. In her fairy tale musings, Adam would understand and protect her to the end. Their children needed their mother, she wrote. But as this note also shows, Kayla wanted more than just one last time with Adam. She had a whole wish list, a set of demands. She wanted, quote, immunity from everything. Everything being in all capital letters. She wanted immunity from everything, all charges I'm facing, and what I'm going to say about Adam. Maybe ankle bracelet, or probation, or drug court. Kids in my life. Not lose custody or rights to my children at all, and be able to have kids live with me once I do a residential treatment program and complete it. Kayla was willing to sing for her supper, not for truth, not for harmony, but for Kayla. Kayla was all about protecting herself to wiggle out of accountability for her own conduct. After that note was discovered in Kayla's cell in January of 2022, January 29th to be exact, Kayla told a correctional officer that she wanted to speak with the Attorney General's office. But no one came to her with a deal. And instead of a deal, she got a subpoena. She got subpoenaed to appear before the grand jury in March, and she remained in jail. Now, Kayla finally got out on bail on May 6th, but she still had been subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury, this time on May 20th. Still no deal. And when Kayla finally appeared before the grand jury, she still had no deal. It was explained to Kayla that she could choose not to answer a question if it would incriminate her. Instead, though, she chose to lie under oath, the same oath you'll see her take later, trying to make herself look innocent while pointing the finger at Adam. She told the grand jury that Adam had dropped her off at Dunkin' Donuts on November 30th with Harmony and the two boys in the car, and said that he was returning Harmony to her mother in Massachusetts. But even as Kayla insisted that she didn't know what happened to Harmony, a bombshell drops. The Attorney General's office, the AG, told her as she was testifying, she was working at Dunkin' Donuts, that they had her employment records. Was she sure? They asked. Kayla knew then that she was caught. She was caught in a lie. The AG had her employment records, looked at them, and knew that she was not working. And this was not just a simple, honest mix-up of days. Those records showed that the AG's office had, those records showed that she had been fired from Dunkin' Donuts for stealing even before the family had been evicted on the 27th of November. She knew she was caught in a lie. She knew the AG's office could prove it, but she had not developed a new lie and couldn't change course in midstream without a plan. So that day before the grand jury, May 20th, she kept marching forward, hoping that maybe they would believe her anyway. Nothing happened at first after her grand jury testimony was over, but Kayla knew it was coming. And roughly 2 weeks later, on June 3rd, when Kayla checked in as part of her bail conditions, it did. It came. She was arrested for lying before the grand jury. Kayla had a new story prepared, but with the new charges, the state had the upper hand. She was allowed to give her new story with the agreement that her statements could not later be used against her. But there was no guarantee of a deal, and instead, Kayla would only get that deal that she wanted if her statements helped the police figure out what happened to Harmony. And if the state decided that Kayla's statements were not helpful, she would be facing not only the charges she was already facing, but now 2 more felony charges, this time for perjury, perjuring herself before the grand jury, plus any charges that could come about if the police were able to figure out what happened to Harmony without her statements. And Kayla knew that the police were going to follow up on what she now said. And without something to corroborate this new story she was going to give, there wouldn't be any reason for the police to accept it. After all, she had already lied to the grand jury to point the finger at Adam. So instead of the truth, she told a lie of a brutal killing where she was also a victim. But because there cannot be any corroboration for the lie itself, Kayla intermingled some of the truth of how she and Adam covered up Harmony's death. The lie itself cannot be corroborated, but there would be corroboration in the truth of the cover up. Because Kayla's new story was not true of how Harmony died, she lacked real memories to draw from, and the details did not fit. Both the details she provided and the ones she did not provide. And it is in those details, details based on a lie, that begin to reveal the lie still being told by Kayla. At first, Kayla's new story for the police, when she gave a proffer on June 3rd of 2022, her new story was that it was the middle of the night, 2 or 3 a.m. Harmony had been having trouble controlling her bodily functions while the family had been living out of the car, and Harmony went to the bathroom again. Adam responded by repeatedly punching Harmony, probably like 10 to 15 times. That story changed to Adam assaulting Harmony in the morning before they went to the clinic for their methadone. The story then continued by saying that Adam struck Harmony again after getting back in the car from the clinic. Then, as they drove to Burger King because Kayla wanted to get something to eat for her and the kids, the story expanded to Adam punching Harmony as he was driving into the Burger King parking lot. Kayla claimed to recall Adam commenting that the last strike was different. He thought he hurt Harmony. Kayla did tell the police that she put an arm up briefly to try and stop Adam, but to no avail. Adam drove up to the Burger King drive-thru. They ordered their food. Adam paid cash. The family got their food and drove back to the Colonial Village apartments with Harmony moaning in the back. That's her story. And when asked, Kayla claimed that she fed the kids. She told the police that she went up to her friend Anthony Bodero's residence to get some drugs for she and Adam to use, leaving Adam alone in the car with Declan, Seamus, and Harmony. This whole entire story was not true.
This sounds like a lame defense to me, but sounds like it's all they have to go on.
One of the things that you'll see that reveals her story about punching to be a lie is that she is unable to describe a true scene. She does not describe 2-year-old Seamus crying as his sister beside him is being struck. She does not describe the baby screaming as violence and chaos break out around him. She does not describe trying to soothe or quiet the children. Nor does she describe Adam reacting at all to what would have been a cacophony of screaming and crying had all that punching been true. She does not describe trying to hide a broken child from the Burger King cashier or any concern on Adam's part that Harmony might be seen by the cashier or the camera. She does not describe Harmony as she feeds piece by piece food to Seamus, who is next to her in the backseat of the car. She does not describe seeking help from her friend she got drugs from. She doesn't describe any concern by her friend, Anthony Bordero, that she seems upset. And please keep close attention to Kayla's various descriptions of the car breaking down, where she claims that she and Adam first discovered that Harmony is dead. Kayla told the police that with Harmony in what would have been a critical, perhaps fatal condition in the back seat, the family decided to drive away from their corner in the back of the Colonial Village apartments. Yet Kayla did not remember where they were going. Then the car broke down at the intersection of Webster and Elm, and they discover Harmony's dead body in the back seat. Kayla talked about waving, honking, agitated drivers behind them around the car as Adam manhandles a dead child in the back seat into a duffel bag. And no one notices. Their car did break down.
People aren't looking for that.
The intersection of Webster and Elm. That is not in question here. And the family did walk back to Bodero's. But Harmony's body was already in the duffel bag, in the trunk, from when they discovered her death in the early hours of the night before. Yesterday, before we broke, the court gave you a partial set of instructions on how you are to go about deciding this case. Among them was an instruction on assessing the credibility of witnesses. It is up to you to determine the credibility of witnesses. But the judge did suggest an illustrative list of factors to consider in making that determination. One factor is whether what the witness said appeared reasonable. In discerning this, details matter. The details that are given and the details that are not. Is the witness pulling from a well of true memory or just making it up? Another factor the court has offered for your consideration is whether what the witness said is consistent with other evidence in the case. And that leads me to some of the science that was used in this case. Kayla also described Adam cleaning up blood spilled by Harmony with a kerchief. That lie was exposed by a special test that can reveal blood traces, even blood that was supposedly cleaned up. Luckily for the police, they were able to locate the broken down Sebring 2 years later. They're able to bring it to their lot at the police station, and they were able to search and test it with a special test that could detect invisible blood, blood that cannot be seen with the naked eye. No traces of blood, including on the back passenger seat where Kayla said Harmony bled and Adam cleaned it up. In offering guidance in assessing witness credibility, another common sense factor offered by the court is whether the witness had a bias or motive to lie. There will be time during Kayla's testimony, during direct and cross, to explore the changes, the inconsistencies, and details within her story, both those that are there and those that are not. And you just heard about the science to also assist you in evaluating Kayla's claims. But here, what follows is an example of Kayla's motive to lie at play, of Kayla taking something true and twisting it to point the finger at Adam, yet hide her own involvement. In telling the police how Harmony's body was finally removed from their lives, Kayla described an incredibly disturbing treatment of Harmony's body, her remains in the refrigerator before being placed in the shower, under hot water, washing away the fluids. Kayla at first said it was all Adam, and he wouldn't even let her in the bathroom. But she slipped up, and fortunately the interviewers caught it. They caught the slip and they probed. Kayla had to admit that she was part of it too. She cut off Harmony's hoodie in the shower, and she and Adam bagged up Harmony's clothes. And when that was done, Kayla and Adam put her remains in another bag, with Kayla helping Adam to zip that bag up. you will hear that after Adam and Kayla permanently hid Harmony's remains, that their relationship became more frayed. Adam struggled with the loss of Harmony and his mental health suffering. Adam and Kayla separated briefly. That was in the spring of 2020 before reconciling. But Adam continued to spiral, and a year later was arrested after another episode. He went to rehab, then stayed at a sober house before going to Maine with Kelsey Small, which was where he was in December of 2021 when Kayla told him to return to New Hampshire and help her deal with the police. Joined with the murder and related charges is a second-degree assault charge. That allegation is that Adam knowingly caused bodily injury to Harmony in July of 2019 by striking her in the face with a fist. Harmony did get a black eye during the summer of 2019, and no question about it, Adam did react when he saw Harmony trying to smother her brother, jerking her away to stop her. But that is not what caused the black eye. On July 22nd of 2019, Kevin Montgomery, Adam's uncle, came up from Florida to the house. He saw Harmony's black eye, prompting a conversation about her. During this conversation, Adam told Kevin about a time when he walked in to find Harmony smothering then 5-month-old Declan. Harmony had her hand wrapped around his mouth, causing him to turn blue. Adam pushed Harmony away while checking on Declan. Then, a week later, upon returning to Florida, I believe it was July 29th, Kevin made a report to New Hampshire DCYF, and he told DCYF that Adam gave Harmony a black eye, conflating what Adam had said. A veteran caseworker, Dimitrios Saros, responded that very same day, the 29th, to investigate. Though the encounter was brief, he did see Adam and Harmony outside the house getting into a car, and when he saw Harmony, he observed no concerns. He also followed up, paying another visit on August 7th. This time, he did see a small red mark in Harmony's right eye and faded bruising under the eyelid. He spoke to Harmony alone, asked probing questions to find out what may or may not have happened, and then, after doing his job, left the visit satisfied that there was no substantiated evidence of abuse. I am getting ready to step down, but before I do, there is just one more instruction I need to discuss. The court has instructed you that you are to decide this case not on sympathy, but on the evidence and the evidence alone. This case involves the tragic and senseless death of Harmony, an innocent 5-year-old, and it triggers perfectly understandable, innate human emotions, and it would be a human not to feel them. But as was discussed during the jury selection process, and as you've been instructed by the court, you all have a difficult yet necessary task: deciding this case not on emotion, not on sympathy, but on the evidence. And after you have heard all the evidence, after you've heard all the evidence in this case and apply the facts to the law, you will know that Adam did not murder his daughter or engage in witness tampering with Kayla. Kayla was an equal participant in the cover-up. She alone knows how Harmony died, and she won't tell. At this trial's conclusion, we will ask you to follow the evidence you have heard and find Adam not guilty of murdering his daughter, witness tampering with Kayla, and second-degree assault.
Sorry, but that was weak.
Right, ladies and gentlemen,
That was weak.
you've now heard opening statements. As I told you when I gave you my preliminary instructions, we would generally be taking a mid-morning and mid-afternoon break, and I do look for natural breaking points in a trial to do that. I think this is one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 15-minute break now. So use the restroom, have a drink of water, and we'll come back in 15 minutes and begin the evidence. All right, all rise for the jurors, please.
Just waiting to see if we hear something else interesting. Yeah, break already. Doesn't sound like we're gonna. Well, let's wait till the jury goes out. When the jury goes out, that's when they start talking. That was a really, really weak.
Counsel, approach for just a minute.
Okay, counsel's taking a sidebar. All right. So, yeah, to me, that was weak. Like, if the prosecution, if the state is able to prove everything that it just said in front of the jury, to me, it's like open and closed. I don't know why this guy hasn't. See if they're saying anything. Sorry, no. That isn't the. Oh my God, they aren't letting the jury be on camera, are they? No, okay. That's not the jury. All right. It was scaring me that maybe they. Yeah. So, it's a fairly simple recap. And the recap is this. The state gets up and, the lawyer for the state wasn't super forceful, wasn't super energetic in his delivery, but he, his words were, really followed along with what we know to be have learned to be the facts of the case. It's a harrowing story. He went up and basically told a harrowing story of Harmony's life. And one of the things that struck me the most is the fact that she went from actually having a relatively normal existence in foster care, with foster parents, to then having to be with this monster, this family of monsters, right? The parents, meaning not the kids that they had. And that, basically they made a point of saying that Harmony Harmony was potty trained very early, very young, and they didn't specify how young, but by the time Adam had her and they were homeless and they were driving around and they were going to, the methadone clinic, and they said that she was always scared. She was scared of wetting herself because she knew that it made daddy mad. It made daddy mad. And this one day, he went into the clinic and she wet herself and he came back, and sure enough, obviously he got very, very, very mad and did what he did. And I don't want to go into detail again because I think most people listening here know the details, but he essentially beat her to death, right? Yeah, exactly. Living with a monster would make anyone wet their pants, especially when they're 5 freaking years old. Okay. I remember being 5 years old. You're little. Everything else is huge. Everything else is scary. And, I won't go into anything. I don't want to make this about me, but I just remember I had domestic abuse, not the same kind, but everything is so much bigger than you, and it's so scary, and you are at the complete mercy of the grown-ups around you. And this was her existence, and she didn't deserve that. So anyway, Yeah, living in a car, no bathroom. They, he turns around, basically beats her to death, doesn't realize he's beat her to death, and then they drive around and eventually figure out that she's lifeless and not responding. One of the other things that struck me that the prosecution said is that he told a friend, Adam, after Harmony's death, he told friends that he hated Harmony. He actually hated his own daughter. Okay. Clearly. And she was just another income source to him, another welfare check to him. So that was, it was basically the prosecution just reiterating with a few more facts what we know, what we've been told. And it's mostly from Kayla's proffer and, the things that she's testified to. And, there were hints of other things that could be, that we could see brought in. The defense got up and basically said, it's Kayla's fault. Kayla did it. Kayla is the first person to know that, Kayla was the last person to see Harmony alive. He outright said that. He said that Adam, out of the goodness of his heart, was just trying to protect Kayla. Okay. It's possible, Peaches. It's possible. But I don't think that's part of this trial. So yes, it'll be very interesting to see the evidence. The defense is basically, Adam discovered what Kayla had done and decided to stick by his wife. Regardless of this horrible thing that she allegedly did to his daughter, he decided to stick by his wife, and they together discarded and took care of the remains. And I hate saying the word corpse about a 5-year-old little girl. Yeah. And I did put the I'm putting the National Domestic Violence Hotline. If anybody here listening feels that you might be or are the victim of domestic abuse or violence, that's the number to call. Please don't hesitate. We have to break the cycle of abuse. So anyway, here's why I believe that the defense is weak. Okay. Because we are supposed to believe, after all of the conduct that we've seen from Adam Montgomery, we're supposed to believe that Adam is such a good guy that he ran around doing all this cover up of this evidence to protect his wife, who apparently he was also beating senseless in some cases. They showed a fairly alarming picture of Kayla with two big, huge black eyes. I don't think there was a time stamp on when that photo was taken, but my understanding is that it was taken after Harmony's death. So, we have if anything, what we can learn from this, what people can learn from this is that domestic violence isn't just a one-off thing. An abuser is an abuser, and it is the absolute height. It is the high extreme of domestic abuse, of domestic violence. It starts out emotional, but it can escalate and escalate as time goes on into physical violence. But it doesn't always escalate into physical violence. Sometimes it just remains in the emotional realm, and that can be and that an emotional violence has lifelong effects. Okay. These are things that you recover from for a lifetime. Oh gosh, Stacy, this must be a terrible, terrible thing for you to listen to then. And I wish that your mom had not done that. And that's the thing I see with parents and kids is that parents get so upset because they expect their kids to be fully functioning, totally perfect human beings as children, but they're children. They're children, and it's our job to raise them and protect them and teach them how to be people, how to be self-sustained in the world when they go off in the world. And instead, you beat them, you torture them for doing things that kids do, like peeing their pants or soiling their bed. And I do think that there is a lot more awareness now of this type of stuff. There are more services now, and people are starting to slowly come around to see that this is a systemic thing. Domestic violence is a system in the home. It's a system because the primary aggressor has to make other people complicit in their crimes and their bad deeds so that they can't feel safe going to the police themselves. Well, they convince them that they are doing bad things too. So if they try to go get help, they will also be convicted. And sometimes that does end up happening because there's such a delay in our awareness as a culture of mental health and mental illness that sometimes law enforcement authorities, social workers, people, they don't really see the difference between the aggressor and the victim, right? Because sometimes the victim in these systems, sometimes the victim is also an aggressor. So you have to be able to learn how to see, there's just such a tendency to be black and white in our thinking. It's either this, you're either good or bad. You're either an aggressor or you're a victim. But I try to use the analogy, when I worked at Apple, one of the things they were always known for is when you go to make a selection of your, computer that you want to buy on their in their store or on the website, it says they're described as good, better, best. Good, better, best. So it's kind of helping you see that this thing here is good, but there's one thing here that costs a little bit more that's better, and then there's one thing here that's costs the most, but it's the best. In domestic violence, it's bad, badder, and worst, right? It's not just good, bad. And it's just not bad, bad. It's bad, badder, and worse. And it is also a cycle. It's a cycle of drawing a person in. I mean, people get into these relationships because they love each other, right? There were some redeeming qualities. Abusers don't show the abusive side until they're well into a relationship. There's a mask on. And so sometimes it starts to take time for that abusive side to come out. Sometimes it's not, doesn't take long, but sometimes it takes long for that abusive side to come out in a relationship. And by that time, you already have such feelings of love or loyalty, or you're trauma bonded, that you try to fight for the relationship, even if they're being very abusive. Darlin Valentine. Oh my gosh, Halen, just recognize your voice, tuning in, and hopefully see this voice. Yeah. Hello, nice to see you. So, you get people do end up in these relationships. They start families, and then the abuse starts, whether it's emotional or physical or both, right? And then the victim or the non-aggressor is stuck in a trap, like, well, if I get out of this relationship, I'll lose this person I loved, but they're being abusive to me. And then the abuser starts to convince them that they deserved the abuse, right? That exactly. And you believe that the bad side is not real and the good side is what the person really is. That's a really good point, Johnny. I mean, I can't, I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and talked to people about, their relationship with their partner or spouse or whatever. And they're, because they have to vent. And then, when it comes to the solution part, it's like, well, no, I know that it's almost as if they believe that that good side will come back and stay, that there isn't two sides to people. There are many sides to people. There are many sides, and sometimes we don't see all of their sides, all of the sides for quite some time in a relationship. And when you haul off and have a baby with them, pretty early on in the relationship, you're sort of stuck. Your fates are now commingled, right? So, having said all of that, that was my little recap and my little speech about, domestic violence systems. It's a system of abuse. You get convinced through the emotional abuse, at the very least, that you deserved it and that you don't deserve any better, that there's nothing better out there for you. You're told many times, you'll never find any better than me. No one else but me will love you. And because you're being treated so badly and you're being told you deserve it, you start to believe it. And then you're stuck. And the only help you have is getting out of the super warped bias that got you into the relationship and, that made you be attracted to that person in the first place. And yes, when you share children, it makes it that much harder. I'm going to jump over to Twitter real quick and see what people are saying there. I'd like to get lots of different perspectives. I'll make this bigger. I have to say, Adam Montgomery not showing up for a trial. If I was on the jury, that would not look so good for me. Yeah, what do you all think about him not being there? I mean, that's just another form of abuse, right? Like, that is emotional abuse. He is what I would call a control assist. Hey, Alex. Good to see you. And you know what? I was really neglectful yesterday when Alex was so helpfully on my panel. I didn't share her link. So I'm going to do that. Right now, because I know that Alex Erickson is doing recaps at the end of the day. So, and she has an amazing channel. I'm just plugging it in here. So, be sure, if you're not able to watch all day, watch the full trial, you can go to Alex's channel for a good recap. Yeah. And so let's see what else. Let's see what we can see on Twitter here. Of course, Adam Montgomery will not be there for opening statements. I have a feeling he may not show up for the trial at all. I mean, I'm not seeing anyone who isn't just absolutely disgusted and disturbed by this human being's behavior. Look at that little girl. How can you do that to that little girl? Yeah, the prosecutor says, this is a quote from the prosecutor. You will hear who had motive for killing Harmony and getting rid of her. He told a friend Harmony was evil. She was a constant reminder of her mother, Crystal, who he hated. I'm going to see if this account has more. Defense said Adam did not strike Harmony in Guilford Street apartment, but pushed her aside when he saw her try to smother her younger half brother. That was another key part of what the defense said. He tried to, I mean, that sounds to me like the old Shanann killed the kid, so I killed her defense. He's saying that Harmony tried to smother one of her little brothers, and so he... Oh, let me read this again. Defense... Oh, here. People are back. Hold on a moment. I'm going back to the other tab. This sounds like some business that's happening without the jury there. Uh-oh, sidebar. I need to have a sidebar clip. So while the defense was giving their statements, I put up this emoji at one point, and Sparkles came in and thought that was part of the defense's exhibit, or I'm sorry, the prosecution's exhibit, or one of their, whoever the lawyer's exhibit. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I don't blame you. Sparkles. Yeah. So we're supposed to believe that Harmony, this little girl, tried to smother her younger brother, and therefore she's evil.
You can sort of do it simultaneously. If you have a witness advocate, they can bring them in. I'm going to bring the jurors in now. Okay. All rise for the jury, please.
I just this. Oh, okay, sorry. Exactly. You're exactly right. If the baby was crying out of fear, he would beat her. It's her trauma response. So if he saw her putting her hand over the baby's mouth, she was trying to say, be quiet, because she knows that when she cries, she's beaten, right? Or dad gets mad. You don't even, dad getting mad is bad enough. Dad getting mad is scary enough. But then when you know that when dad gets mad that he might beat you, yeah, you're going to try to protect the other people around you. Drive safely, Alex, to get that Red Bull. I was 10 minutes late to this live. I felt bad.
When the state is ready, you may call your first witness.
Michelle Rafferty is called as the first statement. Do people recognize that name?
Ms. Rafferty, if you just remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you will provide will be the truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? You can make yourself comfortable, Ms. Rafferty. There's a microphone in front of you, but I'm just going to ask that you speak into that so that everyone can hear what you're saying. Can you begin by stating and spelling your last name for the record?
Yep. Michelle Raftery, Terry.
And what's your date of birth, Ms. Rafferty?
9/11/70,
Where do you currently live?
Haverhill, Massachusetts.
And how long have you lived there?
In Haverhill, about 25 years.
Who do you live there with?
My husband and 3 of my children.
And what's your husband's name?
Timothy.
And your children? What
The
are their
ones that are home?
ages?
Oh, their ages?
Yes.
Ben's 25, Jaden is 14, and Claire is 13.
And do you have children that live with you?
Those are the ones that live with me. Yeah.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a behavioral health partner
And how long have you done that?
for a year.
Prior to that, what did you do for a living?
I was a FRL, a family resource liaison.
And can you explain what that is to the jurors?
Yes, I work with foster parents and I help support them and run support groups and trainings for them.
Do you have any experience as a foster parent yourself?
Yes, I do. Over 13 years.
And can you tell the jury about that experience?
Yes, we had the privilege of being Harmony's foster parents.
And you mentioned a name, Harmony, just now.
Yep.
Who is she to you?
She was our foster
Oh, this
daughter.
poor lady.
What did she call you?
Mama.
Oh God.
Your husband, Tim, what did she call him?
She called him Dada and Papa.
You said that you'd been a foster parent for 13 years?
Yep.
What point in that timeline, those 13 years, did you take Harmony in?
Like probably halfway through the years. Yep. So she came to us at 2014.
And tell us about that.
Yep. So you always start off, you get a phone call from DCF and they tell you a little bit about the child. And Harmony was 2 months old at the time. And she had a pretty intimidating diagnosis at first. So, I did a lot of Google research, but I still knew that we wanted to say yes. And Harmony came and lived with us when she was 2 months old.
Pretty intimidating. What were you told about Harmony before
So
you
we
took her?
we were told that she has hydroprocephaly, which is like a disorder with her brainstem. And we were told that she was legally blind in both eyes and that she probably wasn't going to live 7 months.
I'm sorry, can you say that last thing?
Yeah, that she probably wasn't going to live past 7 months old. Hydroprocephaly was the original first diagnosis.
You mentioned this blindness.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about that?
So at that time, she had a whole team of doctors and she was considered legally blind in both eyes. However, I started to notice when I would feed Harmony that she would track me with one of her eyes, at least one of her eyes. And, then we went on to get different diagnoses for her.
You mentioned having Harmony since she was 2 months old.
Yes.
What was Harmony's date of birth?
6/7/14.
June 7th, 2014.
That's correct.
What kind of child was Harmony Montgomery?
She was a loving child. She was very sweet, very happy. She was super social. She loved to be with people. We used to joke around with her to leave a sparkle wherever she went, because wherever she went, she left people happy and you knew that you met her.
How long was Harmony in your care for?
So which time? We took care of Harmony 3 times. She came back into care 3 times. So for the first time, she was with us for about 2 months. Then she returned to her mother, and then she returned to us. And then she stayed with us for about a little over 2.5 years. And then she went back with her mother and then came back 10 months later.
You mentioned these disabilities.
Yes.
Was Harmony developmentally delayed?
She was not. It definitely could have been a possibility. She started off with that original diagnosis, and through going through testing, she had a neurologist, endocrinologist, ophthalmologist, and we had a whole team of specialists that worked with her, and they changed the diagnosis to septo-optic dysplasia.
And were you taking steps when she was in your care to treat her needs?
Yeah, absolutely. Harmony had, like I said, a team of doctors, but she also had early intervention workers. So she had 2. She had a nurse that came weekly, and she had a vision specialist that came weekly, and we did all the treatments and the programs that she needed with that.
Was she meeting benchmarks at that time?
She was meeting every benchmark. She was succeeding. Yeah.
Ms.
Wow.
Rafferty, when was the last time you saw Harmony Montgomery?
The last time I saw Harmony was December of 2018.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Deep breaths, everybody. I'm sure this woman's been waiting to see justice for this dad for a long time.
So, Your Honor, I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 97. Ms. Rafferty, do you recognize this?
I do.
I'm going to get close to a microphone so I'm picked up. What is this?
That's the day that they were doing school pictures, and she wanted to have a sparkly blue dress.
And do you recognize the person that's depicted in this picture?
Yes,
Who is it?
it's Harmony Montgomery.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of Harmony as you remember her?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point I move to admit as State's Exhibit 97.
All right, the ID is stricken. It's entered as a full exhibit.
And I move to publish at this
You
point.
may
Your Honor.
publish it.
Look at that sweetness. That's pure innocence. That is pure innocence, people.
Mrs. Rafferty, do you know someone named Adam
I do.
Montgomery?
Yes.
How do you know him?
He was Harmony's biological father.
She's angry.
Would you
You
recognize
can tell.
the defendant if you saw him again?
Absolutely.
Your Honor.
And he can't say, do you see him in this room? Because he's a fucking coward. He couldn't face people like this woman, right?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Rafferty,
Yes.
do you recognize this item?
Yes.
Can you tell me what it is?
It's Adam Montgomery.
And Your Honor, at this point, is this
It's
a
a
fair?
picture. Yes.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of Adam Montgomery as you remember?
He has to
Yes.
show
I move to mark this vote.
he has to show a picture of Adam Montgomery because he's
101.
that's all he is. He's a one-dimensional coward.
Thank you. The ID is stricken. It's entered as a full exhibit.
And I move to publish it at this
You may
point.
publish it.
Yeah, this item is Adam exactly. She really was just a beautiful,
Ms.
beautiful
Rafferty
child.
was
I'm sorry, Attorney Knowles, would you return the exhibits back to the table when you're done with them, just so that everything remains there unless you're going to use it shortly
Absolutely.
again? Thank you.
That's right, Leo.
Ms. Rafferty, was Harmony potty trained when she was in your care?
Yes, she was. She started at our house and then she finished when she moved back with her mother.
And how old would she have been at that point in her life?
So at 2.5, going on 3, she was potty trained.
What steps did you take to, you said she started at your house. What
Yeah.
steps did you take to potty train her?
Harmony was very easy to potty train. She didn't like to have, soiled clothes on, and she wanted to be like the bigger kids that were in our house. So she would tell us that it was pretty much Harmony potty trained herself.
You mentioned her mother. Do you know
Yes.
her name?
Yes,
Can you tell the jurors?
yes, it's Crystal Sorey.
And you said that Crystal Sorey finished her potty training.
Yes,
Did Harmony return to your care after that?
she did. Yes,
And after Harmony returned to your care, did she have any bathroom accidents?
absolutely not.
No bathroom accidents with this foster mother.
If I could have just a moment, Your Honor.
So you can tell that this
Questions for you? The defense attorney may.
foster mother is angry, but
Good
right,
morning.
righteously angry.
I'm sorry, we need to get you a microphone and we'll figure out the other podium if you want to do that, but we might as well set it.
I'll just take it over for now. I only have a few.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to start there.
I've been pronouncing your name all this time wrong. Rafterty?
It's Raftery, yes.
And quite a birthday that you have too.
That's right.
Yeah. So you said that you had Harmony placed with you 3 times.
Yes,
In between, she was with her mother,
yes,
and then she would be returned to you.
yes.
And how long was the most recent time that, how long was she with you the last time she was placed with you?
About 10 months.
Okay. And from being placed with you for about 10 months, she went to another foster care,
Yes,
and you felt like she had more needs than you could deliver, so she went to a therapeutic foster care.
no,
Miss Kumba? That's not?
I don't know that other foster parent.
Ah, okay. So she didn't go to therapeutic foster
She
care?
went to another foster home,
Okay. Not a therapeutic one?
not that I know of.
Okay. Had you asked that she be placed in a therapeutic foster home?
No,
Okay. She left your home for another foster home for what reason?
it's a long story. Co-parenting a child that has trauma, first of all, is very difficult. Co-parenting a trauma with DCF involvement and co-parenting with them is extremely difficult.
Okay. So Harmony was placed with you 3 times, and that last time she was then placed to a therapeutic foster home.
She was placed in another foster home, yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I
Yep.
did misspeak. Speak. She went to another foster home.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Your Honor, no further questions for this witness. I ask that she be excused.
Any objection? All right. You may step down and
Thank
you are
you.
excused.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like the defense wanted to make sorry, wanted to place blame on the foster parents for not getting her into the right foster care. And I thought it was interesting how the witness said, you know, co-parenting is hard as it is. Co-parenting a traumatized child, or, you know, a child that is born with needs with DCF, you know, with the system, is very hard. And I can imagine it is. I mean, I've never done it myself. But I felt like she was trying to place some sort of responsibility on the foster mother for things that her real parents should have been doing, and things that the system should have been doing, things that the system should have been thinking of. Oh, I'm sorry to all of you who this is triggering. If this is too triggering for you to listen to watch, please do not hesitate to step away for your own well-being. Sometimes it is cathartic to watch trials like this, to try to understand why, how to recognize that this is not something that, you know, we were the only one that experienced it. But also it can be very triggering, and it can cause us sometimes to be short with our family members, and not real present for our family members. So take care of yourselves first. You know, it is a very heavy case. At points, I'm going to be looking like this. Just know it. It's really heavy. Just noting that we get to this view of this lovely guard here. Little did he know, by sitting in that specific position where the camera points so that it doesn't see the jury and it's not listening to the sidebar, he gets to be on camera that whole time. Poor guy. So sad thinking that she wasn't wanted by anyone because of the difficult situation. I would have wanted her. Yeah. You know what? I bet there are many grown-ups, foster parents that would have taken her in a heartbeat, or non-foster parents who just saw her in the street, saw that she was being mistreated and wanted to swoop her up, right? He's not there again. For those of you who are just joining, we have heard opening statements from both the prosecution and the defense. Adam is not in court. I don't know. Yesterday the judge was giving Adam a speech on the monitor about, hey, if you're not going to show up to court tomorrow, you need to tell the sheriff's office before they go to pick you up. And I'm curious about whether, hello, Amy Elizabeth. Thank you. I'm curious about what happened this morning. Like, did the sheriff's office have to go all the way over to pick him up for transport and then get refused by him because he's such a bitch? Sorry. I mean, because he clearly likes to play with people. Yeah, the item. I mean, the prosecution. So we heard the opening statements of both the prosecution and the defense, and then we heard the first witness, which was Harmony's first foster mother. And when the prosecution said, would you recognize the defendant? She said, yes, he had to show a picture because the bitch isn't there. I'm just trying to listen to see if I could. Thank you for the gifted membership, Christina Johnson. Since we're on a tiny little bit of a break, you get a special court clip for becoming a member. Here's the special court clip for becoming a member.
Alfred!
Thank you for the gifted membership. Is this a defense witness?
If you would please go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly
Oh no,
swear
this is a
that
prosecution
jury
witness. Sorry.
will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I mixed up the lawyers. Sorry.
Please feel free to have a seat. Ms. Sorey, since we're being recorded here today.
Good question, Law
there's a
Nerd.
microphone right in front of you, so I will ask you to please keep your voice up to make sure that the recording picks you up. Would you please state your full name and spell both your first and your last name?
My name is Crystal Renee Sorey, CrystalSorey.
And Ms. Sorey, what town do you live in?
I live in Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
How long have you lived there?
A year and 5 months.
And how far did you go in school?
I didn't graduate high school.
I'd like to ask you about a specific day, June 7th, 2014. What significance, if any, does that day have for you?
It was the day my daughter Harmony was born.
And Harmony was a girl, correct?
Yes.
Have you had any other daughters besides Harmony?
No.
And what was her full name?
Harmony Renee Montgomery.
Same middle name as you.
Yes.
What was her medical condition when she was born?
She was blind in her right eye. She was misdiagnosed twice before that. Yeah, just blind in her right eye.
And after about 3 months after she was born, who did she go to live with?
Michelle Rafferty.
And do you know Michelle?
Very well.
Why did she go to live with Michelle?
I am a recovering drug addict. I was struggling at the time, handling her diagnosis. I was struggling.
Is it fair to say that who you are now in 2024 is different than who you were in 2014?
Very.
In March of 2016, were you able to obtain custody of Harmony again?
Yes.
Okay. Where did the two of you live?
First, when she reunified, I was at Casa Esperanza in Roxbury. It was a reunification program, but you could only progress so much there. So then we moved to Ruth Kelly Umi's house on the other side of Roxbury, Dorchester.
Okay. When the two of you were living together, how was Harmony?
Amazing, rambunctious, very smart. By the time she was 2, she could tell you her whole life story.
She was talkative.
Yes. People didn't believe she was 2.
When you got custody and were reunified with Harmony in those two places, did you work and finish potty training with Harmony?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
And how did she take to that?
She did very well, honestly. I was kind of surprised. She was just really excited to be a big sister. Her brother had diapers, and I told her, babies wear diapers, and you're not a baby anymore. You're a big sissy. So she was right on it, and she did so well.
In September and then October, I know you were reunified in March of 2016. In September and October of 2018, did she go to live again with Michelle Rafter?
Yes.
And when she left, then that would be the fall of 2018. How old was she?
2018. 3, I believe 3, almost 4.
Yeah, basis.
It's leading in with, I think, the dates.
Your Honor, I believe the question was how old was she in the fall of 2018?
Objections overruled.
Thank you. So she was born in 2014, is that correct?
She was 4, yes.
Okay, so she was 4 in 18.
Yes.
And was she fully potty trained when she left you?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, who was Harmony's birth father?
Adam Montgomery.
And how did you meet him?
Through a mutual friend.
Was he living with you when Harmony was born?
No.
Were the two of you living together when Harmony went to live with the Raftertys?
Never.
Did you ever have any other children with Adam Montgomery?
No.
At some point in 2019, who got custody of Harmony?
Adam.
Where was Adam living at the time?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
Do you remember what street he was living on?
Guilford Street.
And is that where Harmony was as well?
Yes.
What, if any, visits did you have with Harmony after she went to live with Adam Montgomery?
I had 2 physical visits with her. And then I had 2 FaceTime calls, both very brief.
The physical visits, where did you visit her?
excuse me, Guilford Street.
D- Did you visit with her outside the home or inside the home? Or
Inside the home.
inside the home. Did you see where her room was?
No. He never showed me.
When you say he, who is he?
Adam never showed me. I was only allowed in the living room or the bathroom.
How did you communicate with Adam at that time?
Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah. He wouldn't give me his number.
When did you last see Harmony?
April
April of
2019.
April of 2019.
Yeah, right before Easter.
How did you see her?
Oh, I was doing a Facebook video call. That was how I had job training, so I couldn't do a physical visit that week because I didn't know my schedule.
You said that was before Easter, is that correct?
Yes,
Did you see her on Easter?
yes,
Were you able to see her after that?
no.
What did you try to do to be able to see her or talk to her after that?
I just kept reaching out to Adam and Kayla and, asking, begging them to let me see her. And I was sorry for whatever I did. I wasn't even sure what I did. But I was just trying to reach out to really anybody at that point, his family, his grandmother, his uncle, his dad, anybody.
Let me ask, did you try to reach out through the months of May and June?
Yes,
What about in July?
I believe so.
Did you receive any phone call from Kevin Montgomery, Adam's uncle, in July?
Yes,
I'm not going to go into the detail of what was said, but after that call, did you continue these efforts you talked about before, trying to get in touch with Adam?
yes,
And what about September of 2019? Were you trying to get in touch with Adam then?
yes,
What about October and November of 2019? Were you trying to get in touch with Adam then?
yes,
Christmas of 2019?
yes,
In touch with him then?
yes,
Were any of those successful?
no,
Did you see or hear from Harmony at all during that time period?
no,
What about in the year 2020? Did you continue to try to find and get in touch with Harmony or Adam?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No problem. What about the following year, in the year 2020? Did you try to get a hold of Adam and Harmony?
Yes, I had made a new Facebook hoping, because he had blocked me and so did Kayla, I was hoping to get through to him that way.
Did you try also through 2021?
Yes,
By December of 2021, what else were you doing to try to find Harmony
I
and get Adam
was,
to respond?
calling DCF. I was, telling my therapist, talking to anybody that I knew was either a mandated reporter or had some type of leverage because I wasn't getting anywhere. I had wrote also to the mayor.
And in December of 2021, did you have any meetings with the Manchester Police Department?
I'm sorry.
In December of 2021, did you meet with the Manchester Police Department about trying to find Harmony?
Yes,
And with regards to that, did you provide them with any permissions to try to get more information to help find Harmony?
I signed whatever they needed me to sign.
Did any of that include medical authorizations for medical records?
Yes,
Did you provide a DNA swab for them?
twice.
Did you provide permission for them to look at your Facebook account?
Yes,
Did you provide permission for them to find out where you had been living and contact those places to confirm your dates there?
yes,
I'm sure the defense is going to try to tear her apart.
For identification? Oh, that's right. That's cool. Thank you.
Yes.
He just showed her a picture of Adam, and
Adam Montgomery.
all she did was look down.
Yes.
Can barely hear the lawyer.
State's Exhibit 97.
That's my girl. That's Harmony.
In the fall of 2018, she went back. You know that she was going to school, taking classes.
When she was with Michelle, she was, but not after.
Not after.
No.
You explain what you mean by that.
When she went with Adam, she never went to school.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. If we could have.
I agree, Lil Red. I think she carries a lot of shame with her. I can see that. Not that it excuses her, but I can see that she carries that shame. Lil Red, I think it's because they had to just print it out because he didn't show up. They didn't have time to make a poster board out of it. But who would want to make a poster board out of his face? You know? Good morning, fruit fly.
Ms. Sorey, I just have one last question for you. With regards to all of those communications that you talked about through 2019, 2020, 2021, trying to get a hold of Adam Montgomery or Harmony, for any of those, were you ever able to speak with Harmony?
No.
I can have just a moment. And just to clarify, Ms. Sorey, the last time that you saw her, I believe your testimony before was April of 2019.
Yes.
So it was not around Thanksgiving time of 2019.
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions for you, Ms. Sorey. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
So here comes the defense, and get ready. They're probably going to tear her apart in all the ways that people, think ill of her.
Because I only have a couple of questions. And it sounds like Harmony was a lovely child and a joy. Is that right?
Yes.
And you described on direct her getting potty trained and you comparing her to her brother,
Yeah.
your son.
Yes.
And I think she loved being a big sister to her brother, your son.
Yes.
Right. And you described how old Harmony was in September of 2018, I think. Harmony was not living with you at that time. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
They were very careful, Jen Lou, because it was just a couple questions. And I want to say, this is not to excuse, but to explain that addiction is an illness. you all. It's not a character flaw. It's an illness. It's an illness that keeps us away from our children. And it's an illness that makes people want to use other people in every way they can. And some people are more ill and addicted than others. And some people go into that illness already as a criminal and just become worse criminals, like Adam Montgomery. And so when, we are all rightfully curious about why did it take so long for her to figure out where her child was. She was addicted and her child was in the system, and the system does not make it easy for, anyone in that situation. Right? Yeah, I agree, Jen Lu. So, so many people are afflicted by this illness called addiction. And one of the worst traits of addiction is the denial. So many people walk around with addiction denying that they have any addiction, but just living for that addiction. And it takes you over so ultimately that everything else comes second. Everything else comes second. Your children, your family, your own needs, right? And that's why it's that's why it's something that people have to understand and learn more about, how to avoid getting into addiction in the first place. A lot of people get into addiction because they're trying to take away from the pain that they were caused as children. Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's prescribed. I got to take this banner down. Especially if it's prescribed, you're addicted before you even know it. And then they say, "Oh, you're addicted. We're not prescribing this for you anymore." So you go to the streets and you go to get the drugs, some semblance of that addiction filled by other types of drugs that are, more hardcore. And so, I showed a couple clips yesterday of Adam say, yes, exactly, Alex, to not feel everything so intensely. And, you saw Adam say in the clips that I showed yesterday, he says, I didn't choose to be an addict. I didn't choose to wake. Nobody chooses. Nobody chooses. The drugs are designed to addict us. Okay. That's what they're designed to do. And I'm sorry to say this and keep sometimes making it about the internet, but witness how similar it can be with internet addiction. People will, because of their internet addictions, they will neglect their children. They will neglect their duties. They will be horrible people, because something about the internet is addicting them. They're getting something out of it, either financially or emotionally. Addiction is addiction is addiction. And I just want to say right now to all of anybody here who's listening or chatting, if you have a past with addiction and you've been able to get into recovery, my heart is with you and I'm proud of you. If you haven't been able to yet, there's still hope. There is still hope.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please feel free to have a seat. Ms. Travers, let me just ask you, since we're being recorded here today, would you please state your full name and spell both your first name or the initials you go by and your last name for the record?
Sure. My first name is DD, just spelled as DD. Last name is Travers, T-R-A-V as in Victor, E-R-S.
And Ms. Travers, do you live in the state of New Hampshire?
Yes, I do.
How long have you lived here?
Approximately 20 years.
20 years. And currently, where do you work?
I work for a Catholic Medical Center in Manchester.
What do you do for them?
Currently, I work as a nurse practitioner.
And how long have you been working as a nurse practitioner for them?
I've been working about 5 years as a nurse practitioner.
And prior to that, were you also working for CMC in a different capacity?
Yes, I was working as a registered nurse.
Let me ask you, at any point were you assigned to work at the affiliate for Catholic Medical Center, the urgent care in Bedford?
Yes,
And I'd like to direct your attention specifically to June 2nd of 2019. Did you take vital signs from a child named Harmony Montgomery that day?
yes,
And as part of those vital signs, did you measure and record her weight?
yes.
How much did Harmony Montgomery, the patient that you saw that day, weigh when you saw her on June 2nd of 2019?
I don't recall the actual number.
Let me ask, with regards to those, when you measured her weight, did you record that information somewhere?
I would record it in the electronic health records.
Okay. And with regards to the electronic health records, when do you record that? So,
Generally, it's done in the room with the patient.
so right then and there, while you're with the patient, you're recording that?
Yeah,
Okay. And if you had a chance to look at those records, do you think that looking at those records might help refresh your recollection as to what the weight was that you took on that day?
if I could look again, I could remember the number. Yeah, that'd be great.
You want to approach page 4822? Do you recognize that to include the medical records that you entered that day?
Yep, it has my name right there.
Okay.
And
And I'm about to say, I'm going to have you go ahead and take a look at it for a moment. And when you're ready, just look back at me. I'm going to ask you what her weight was.
okay,
And does that
The person on the stand is a health practitioner.
of the weight?
yes,
And how much did Harmony Montgomery weigh in June of 2019 when you measured her?
35.20.
35.20. And are those grams, those pounds? The
I'm sorry, I didn't
35.20.
look at that. I apologize.
That's all right. I'm sorry. The 35.20, is that pounds? 35 pounds? Or 35.20 pounds, I should say.
I didn't actually see that it said pounds on there, but
Okay. Let me ask, do you typically, when you do your measurements, are they in pounds or are they in kilograms?
they're usually in kilograms.
Usually in kilograms?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that your memory is fresh. So with regards to the record, do you recall off the top of your head whether it was 35.2 kilograms or 35.2 pounds?
I don't recall.
Okay. And having a chance to look at the vital signs again, do you think that might refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Same page?
So I think the reason they're giving,
Does that help? I see
they
you
have this
nodding your head.
person on the stand is
Yes,
to
yes,
So that 35.2 are those pounds or kilograms?
pounds.
35.2.
talk about whether she was thriving with Adam, physically, health wise, thriving.
Thank you very much, Nurse Travers. I greatly appreciate it. I don't have any further questions for you. I believe Defense Counsel may have a few.
And I think Harmony's weight was appropriate for her size and age.
Foundation.
So just then the defense got up and started to ask the question, was that a typical healthy, weight and height for a child of Harmony's age? And then they called a sidebar when the state objected on foundation. So what I think that what they're trying to do is say, you know, hey, at this point in time, which I believe they said was in 2019, she weighed a certain, she weighed this much, and they'll probably establish later that she weighed a lot less, you know, over time with Adam, because she was being neglected. She probably wasn't being fed well. She, you know, a lot of times in these cases, you start to see, even with little kids like Harmony, that they get cavities even in their baby teeth, which is just tragic. You know, if she didn't have access to a bathroom, she surely, you know, to actually go into a potty. I think she said 35. It was like 32 or 35. I don't remember the exact number, Alex. I'm sorry. Yeah, 35.20 pounds. There you go. So, you know, I think when the defense got up to try to ask her, is that a normal weight for a child, you know, that age? She was trying to say she was already not healthy. She was already not thriving, right? Yeah, the cameras are doing good. The audio is, you know, so-so. The audio is honestly so-so. While we're waiting for this sidebar, you know, I'm not taking away from the gravity of this moment, but this has been heavy. So let's get a tiny little palate cleanser.
I have an objection.
Shut up.
I have a right to object, I believe, Your Honor.
You have the right to get held in contempt of court. And that's
It's just kind of satisfying to hear that judge tell the pro se litigant to shut up. But anyway, I'm having a hard time figuring out how, I just do not see the defense overcoming these terrible facts, especially if Kayla gets up and she appears as a more credible witness than she has in the
Couple more
past.
questions. Did you stay in the room until the doctor came in to look at Harmony?
No,
Okay, so you just pretty much take that information and give it to the doctor for the doctor to do the examination?
that's correct.
Okay, and you don't know the results of the examination, is that right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any objections or being excused?
May I ask one more question, Your Honor?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
One more question.
But one of the observations that you did make was the sores around her mouth?
That's what I wrote in the report, yes.
Okay, and that was a rash or sores around her mouth that she was present for, right?
Yeah, that's what I wrote in the report, yeah.
Thank you.
So she had a
Oh, do you have any follow-up questions?
rash around her mouth. Yeah, they might go to lunch at this point. We'll see. It's almost lunch there. Just a little funny aside, you know, when you're coming up with the name of your, oh wait, hold on.
You may sit down and you are excused. Thank you.
When you're coming up with your channel name, you forget that, you know,
Next witness.
oh, they are going to call the next witness. Okay. It must be a short witness. They must anticipate that it's a short witness like this one was.
This time the state calls Mr. Kevin Montgomery to the stand.
Kevin Montgomery. Does anyone know who is that? Is that Adam's brother? Adam's father? It's a Montgomery. Hey everyone, Johnny's dog needs to poop. Johnny's dog's running around doing the poop dance. You know, time to break. Time to go to lunch. Yeah, oh, okay. So it's Adam's uncle. Kevin Montgomery is Adam's uncle. Yeah, okay. He looks like he could be an uncle. Alex says this is going to be a major witness, so listen up, everyone. Right, Harmony's great uncle. This should be extremely interesting.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, if you would please go ahead and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony that you will give this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please feel free to have a seat. Mr. Montgomery, as we are being recorded here for the record, could you please go ahead? And I'm going to ask you to please go ahead and state your name, both your first and your last name.
Hang on 1 second. Could you carefully open that? Otherwise it sort of comes, the top can open. Thank you.
Oh, this is the one who offered the money
Thank you, sir.
and
Could you
witnessed the
please go
black
ahead and
eye.
state your full name and spell out both your first and your last name for the record.
Kevin Lester Montgomery, KEVIN MONTGOMERY,
And Mr. Montgomery, what town are you living in now?
Malden, Mass.
How long have you lived down there?
I've been back in the area since June
June of this year?
last year,
June of last year.
23.
Of course, sorry. And are you currently working?
I am.
What do you do for work?
I am a plumber.
And how far did you go in school?
10th grade.
How long have you been a plumber?
Roughly 3.5 years ish.
What are some of the other kind of jobs that you had before being a plumber?
Landscaping. I was in the drywall, union, roofing,
Okay.
stuff like that.
I'd like to ask, in 2019, where were you living at the first part of 2019?
2019, first part of 2019, I was living in Manchester,
And what was the street address that you were living at?
77 Guilford Street.
Who owned that home?
Excuse me?
Who owned that home? Sorry.
My mom and my ex.
And who else lived there? Let me ask, let's say in February or March of 2019, who else lived there?
So it was me, my nephew, his wife, and their kids.
And who's your nephew, sir?
Adam Montgomery,
And who was his wife at the time?
Kayla Montgomery.
I'm going to go ahead and show you State's Exhibits 1 and 2. And just see if, let's just talk about State's Exhibit 1 for a moment. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 1?
I do.
Okay. And what is that a photograph of?
The front of the house,
Which house?
77 Guilford Street.
Okay. And what about, and with regards to that photo, did the house look that way when you were living there in 2019? And by that, I just mean where the windows are, the door is, the color.
Yes.
Okay. And now I would like to show you State's Exhibit 2 for identification purposes only. Do you recognize what that is a photo of?
I do.
What's that a photo of?
That was Harmony's room.
Where was her room, inside this house or somewhere else? Did she live with you?
Yeah, her room was across from my room inside that house.
Other than the stickers that are at the bottom here, and the photograph itself of the room and the home, are these accurate to your memory of what that room used to look like and what this home used to look like generally when you were
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, I'd ask for the identifications to be stricken from State's Exhibit 1 and 2, please.
Objection. I'm sorry. No, without objection. Okay, the ID is stricken. They're entered as full exhibits.
He just took a big deep breath.
So, Mr. Montgomery, go ahead. Permission to publish here.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. In regards to State's Exhibit 1, this is 77 Guilford Street? Is that correct?
Yes.
And let me ask you, how many bedrooms were in the home? How big a house are we talking about?
Living room on the first floor, 2 bedrooms in the back, and then like an attic that was like made over upstairs.
When you say made over upstairs, was that also used as a bedroom?
Correct.
And I'm showing State's Exhibit 2.
Mr. State Man, go to the microphone when you talk.
I want to make sure I got your testimony right, that this was Harmony's room. Is that right?
Yes.
The stickers on the wall, do you know what that's a sticker of?
Yes, that was a Minnie Mouse.
Montgomery, excuse me. In 2019, you said, I believe before that you said that your nephew, Adam Montgomery, was living with you. Is that correct?
Can you speak up, please?
Yes, certainly. And let me move closer to the microphone. In
Thank you.
2019, I believe you testified a moment ago that you said Adam Montgomery was living with you, and he's your nephew. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And so nephew, in terms of, so who's his father? And I would assume his father or mother is a brother or sister to you.
So his dad's my older brother, Michael.
And with regards to Adam, how long have you known Adam?
His whole life.
Were you subpoenaed to be here today to testify?
I was.
And let me ask you, do you want to be here today testifying about your nephew?
No.
When Adam came to live with you at Guilford Street, I believe you said before that he had kids with him and that he had his wife. Could you tell us what her name is?
Adam's wife,
Yes.
Kayla
Okay.
Montgomery.
And the kids that moved in with him there in 2019, who were they? Do you remember their names, I should say?
I do. Could you say that question again, please?
Certainly. So when Adam and Kayla came to live with you, you said that there were kids in the home before. What were their names?
So when Adam and Kayla came in, who came with them?
Yes, exactly.
At first it was just Seamus.
Okay. And who is Seamus?
Seamus is their son.
Okay. Who came to live with you next after that? Which child came next?
I believe 2019. So I believe a baby was born somewhere, and then Harmony.
And then Harmony. So Harmony was the last child to move in?
I believe so.
Okay. We looked at a picture of Harmony's room. Where was that room in the house? Was it upstairs? Was it downstairs?
So it was downstairs, at the end of the hallway on the right,
Okay. And where was your room in the home?
right across the hall.
Where did you see Harmony spend most of her time when she was in the house?
Okay, so we have a sidebar. I find it interesting that this witness had to be subpoenaed. He's not really coming forward voluntarily. It sounds as though he did really try to intervene in a number of ways. Hard to tell how far he went. He also appears to be extraordinarily nervous, and full of anxiety about being there today. The approach coach is on the move. Good one, Skylab. Yeah, he does look like he's about to pass out, so he needs to take those deep breaths. You know, even though it's a bitch move for Adam not to be in the court, it's probably a relief for some of these people not to have to see him, not to have to be in the same room with him. And I'd also like to say it's good that Adam is not representing himself so that he doesn't have to be, so that they don't have to be questioned by him. Because that is an incredibly
So, Mr.
daunting
Montgomery, let me
experience.
just restate that question for you. So the question that I had for you is that when you saw Harmony, primarily what parts of the house did you see her in? Where did she spend most of her time that you saw?
Just everywhere.
Just everywhere.
Kitchen,
Okay.
living room, just everywhere.
In July of 2019, did you stay in New Hampshire or did you go to any other state?
I lived in New Hampshire,
Mhm.
and then I went for roughly 3 weeks to Florida.
Okay. And let me ask you about that trip to Florida. Did any other family members go with you on that trip?
My son.
Your son? Okay. And when you were in Florida, did you visit any family members?
I did all my family.
Okay. Let me ask you, sir, when you were down in Florida visiting family, tell us some of the different family members that lived down there that you saw.
So
Thanks for becoming a member,
the
Zoomer.
trip was primarily to go see my mom because my mom had some health issues. But I have several brothers. I saw them, nephews, sister, the whole family.
And I know testifying can be very difficult. So if you need a break or anything, you just let us know and let the court know. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You said that you were seeing your mother and she had some health issues. What health issues did she have?
So I believe that April she had triple bypass heart surgery, and that's what the trip was based around, was going to see her.
And did you spend a lot of time with her during that July trip?
I did.
Okay. When you came back, do you remember what day you flew back into town?
Roughly the 22nd or the 23rd of July.
And I apologize. I made an assumption there, and I shouldn't do that. How did you come back to New Hampshire? Did you fly? Did you drive? Did you take a train?
We flew, James and myself.
And when you flew back, and who's James?
James is my son.
Okay. So when you flew back into town, did you fly into Manchester or into Boston or somewhere else?
Boston, Logan.
Okay. Did you come back to Manchester that same day after you got off the flight?
I did.
Okay. And did you go to visit 77 Guilford Street? Did you go home?
I did.
let me ask you, when you got home, did you see Harmony there?
I did.
Where did you see her?
I seen her standing in the kitchen.
And when you saw her in the kitchen, how did she look to you?
She had a black eye.
Can you describe it for us? How did the black eye look?
Full, like a raccoon's eye, black and blue.
Black and blue?
Yes,
And when you say full, what do you mean by full? Can you give us a good
all the
example?
way around.
All the way around. And I see just there you were pointing to your right eye. Did you see it on her right eye?
I honestly can't recall, but I think the left.
Okay. You think the left. Okay. I appreciate that for your honesty there. You said you saw her in the kitchen with this black eye?
Yes,
Okay. So when you saw her in the kitchen with this black eye, what, if anything, did you say? It's okay. Take your time.
something along the words of, "Oh my fucking God, what did you do, Harmony?"
What
And
did you do,
who answered
Harmony?
that question?
Oh, to Harmony. Okay.
My nephew Adam,
Where was he?
standing right behind her.
And what did Adam say?
She didn't do anything. I bashed her around the fucking house.
Jesus Christ.
Did Harmony ever say anything in response to the question, or just Adam saying, I bashed her around the fucking house?
I think just Adam.
Right, Johnny?
How did Adam say this?
How did he say it?
Yes. Or let's put it this way. Can you say it the way that he said it so that we understand?
I'm not sure. If I had to describe it to the best of my ability, it would be like a cocky son of a bitch.
Did Adam tell you why he bashed her around the house and caused the black eye?
He did.
What did he say?
He said he was in the bathroom moving his bowels, and that he put Harmony in charge to watch Declan. And when he came out, Harmony had her hands over his mouth, and I guess his lips were supposedly blue. That's what was explained.
That's what Adam explained to you.
Correct.
And after he explained that, how did he say he caused the black eye?
I bashed her around the fucking house.
Was there anybody else in the kitchen when Adam said this to you?
Just the three of us.
Just you, Adam, and Harmony.
Harmony.
Let me ask you, did you stay at your house that night?
I did.
What about the night after that?
I left the following morning.
Did you ever stay in the house after that? Overnight?
I did not.
When you heard this from Adam, who did you tell about what Adam told you and seeing the black eye? Who did you tell?
You want names?
Yes, please.
Told my mom. Told my son's mother, Christina. Told my sister, Erin. My brothers, Sean, Michael, and Richard. I told one of Adam's friends, Nick and Aaron. I told Harmony's mom, Crystal. I told Harmony's foster mom, Michelle. I think I told my sister Janine, my mother Helen. That's kind of what I remember. Could you just repeat the question again?
That's all right. I believe you answered the question.
Okay.
Let me ask, did you also make any calls to the what's called DCYF, or the Division of Children, Youth, and Families?
I did.
And the Nicholas and the Aaron that you referred to, is that Nicholas the same person as Nicholas Ahern?
Yes.
And is that Aaron the same person as Aaron Rue?
Yes.
Why did you tell all these people? Why did you call DCYF about this?
Say that again?
Yes. Why did you tell all of these people?
To get help.
Help for who?
For Harmony.
Did you ever see Harmony after that day?
I did.
When did you see her? And by when, I mean what time of year?
What time of year?
Yes.
Hey, if anyone feels the need to step away, this is extraordinarily difficult and heavy testimony. So do not hesitate to step away. We'll still be here. I want to mention something, y'all. Hey, it's really, really, really understandable to feel anger toward people who were around abuse and didn't directly intervene. But I want to remind you, and this is not an excuse, it's an explanation for the thing, why these things happen sometimes. When there is a very violent abuser like Adam Montgomery around, all the people around him know he's a violent abuser. And they have probably tried to intervene in the past with this guy, with Adam, this big abuser. And when they did, the blowback goes back onto the victim. Okay? So Adam he may get mad, just in a hypothetical instance. He doesn't get mad, or he does get mad at Uncle Kevin for trying to intervene. But he's also pissed at Harmony for causing that. He thinks that he's a victim of Harmony causing him to be reported, right? That's the way these sick fucks think. So then they take their anger
Mr.
out on
Montgomery,
the victim again
did
and
you,
again.
and let me change my questions a little bit for a minute here. Did you see Harmony again in September of 2019?
I believe so.
Okay. And let me ask, on when you did see her, was it at 77 Guilford Street?
Yes.
And was that before Adam was evicted from the home?
Yes.
Did you see Harmony after they were evicted from the home?
No.
And, you know, this witness did apparently try to call child services. That's what that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they are there for, to intervene in these situations.
After Adam told you about causing Harmony's black eye,
Get to the mic.
further conversations with him about that incident?
I did.
And what did he say to you in that later conversation about this black eye incident?
What did he say to me in the later conversation about the black eye?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what you exactly mean.
I'm about to say, let me back up and I'll clarify. Attorneys need to ask very clear questions. So you've described for this jury about seeing Harmony's black eye and Adam telling you that he bashed her all around the fucking house. Did you talk with Adam about that black eye at a different time, at a later time?
I did.
And at that later time, what did he say about having bashed Harmony around the house?
Can I explain?
So if we could approach for a minute, Your Honor.
Y'all, I'll be right back. I've been called outside to move my car because there's some construction workers coming. So I'll be right back. It'll just be 3 minutes or so. So if you hear me not talking in the middle of stuff, that's why.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. We just needed a minute to talk there. What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask I apologize. Let me ask a very clear question about this second conversation. When you were later speaking with Adam about this black eye incident, did he apologize to you for having hit Harmony?
Just yes or no, right?
With regards to the question, yes. Did he apologize to you? Did he say he was sorry for having hit Harmony?
Yes.
He did. Going into the fall of 2019 after the eviction and then going into 2020, did you try to get in touch with Adam, with the defendant?
Give me the time frame again.
Yes. After the eviction, so in the fall of 2019 and going into the next January, February of 2020, and then going into the summer of 2020, did you try to get a hold of Adam?
I did.
Okay. And were you able to do so?
I got a hold of somebody on Facebook.
Okay. But what about Adam?
It's hard to remember.
Well, if I can withdraw that question, Your Honor, I'll ask a different question. With regards to that, you said you got a hold of somebody on Facebook. Were you able to go into a conversation on Facebook, or were you ever blocked on Facebook?
Summer of 2020, correct?
Yep, fall of 2019 into the summer of 2020.
Right. The pandemic happened in 2020, right?
Yes, sir.
Like March, right? So that's like my first summer in Florida. Yes, I got I believe I got in touch with someone on Kayla's account through Facebook Messenger that summer.
What about with one of Adam's accounts?
No, I think I was blocked.
All right, so Mr. Montgomery, I just have one other quick set of questions for you. And thank you for being patient with me today while I made sure that I was asking the correct questions of you. With regards to what you've talked about for us, one thing, and I'm sure you may be asked about this in a moment, so I'd like to save people some time now. Have you been convicted of 2 felonies out of this court within the last 10 years?
I'm back.
Yes.
And was one of those a conviction in 2015 for being a felon in possession of a weapon?
Yes.
And was one of those a conviction in 2016 for a theft by unauthorized taking?
Yes.
Okay. And from those, have you completed your sentence that was there, and those are all finished now at this point?
Yes.
Lastly, Mr. Montgomery, to show you State's Exhibit 97. Do you recognize this person?
I do.
And who is this?
It's Harmony.
I believe you said your recollection was that this may have been Harmony's left eye that you saw blackened.
I believe so.
Thank you. I have no further questions for you, Mr. Montgomery. Thank you very much for your time. I believe defense counsel may have a few after we speak to the board.
Okay. Hey, I'm back, everyone. So the prosecution just said they have no further questions. We'll see if the defense gets up and tries to turn this. Hey, Delaney. You know what? I do have the CC on. Maybe the banners are covering it. Hold on. Yeah, I have the CC on. We'll see if we could see it better without the banner. But anyway, yes, we should. They should wear wireless lavalier mics. but they probably can't, because then they wouldn't be able to turn them off during sidebar and stuff like that. I'm so sorry, Teacup, and I'm so sorry to everyone this is bringing up horrible memories for you. Hopefully seeing a man like Adam, a monster like Adam, brought to justice is some sort of justice,
Good afternoon, Mr. Montgomery. Are you able to hear me okay?
No.
Right now, yes.
Great. Let me know if you can. My name is Jamie Brooks, and I represent Adam, okay? I'll also ask you some questions, but I'll try to be fairly quick. You indicated that you returned to the Guilford Street address on the 22nd of July, 2019.
I believe I said the 22nd or the 23rd.
One or the other. Could have been the 22nd, could have been the 23rd.
Excuse me?
So it would be either the 22nd or the 23rd of July that you were there,
Correct.
and you ended up having a conversation with Adam. Correct?
Yes.
And this conversation included Adam, yourself, and Harmony in the kitchen, right?
Say that again?
The conversation took place in the kitchen.
Correct.
Harmony was there, right?
Yes.
You were there.
Yes.
Adam was there.
Correct. Yes.
Nobody else to your recollection was there.
No.
No other adult was within earshot of this conversation as far as you knew?
No.
And the conversation was prompted because you saw a black eye on Harmony.
Correct.
You indicated that Adam said that she didn't do anything.
Correct.
In response to your question of, oh my God, what happened? He said,
Oh my God, what the fuck did you do? I think I said.
Okay. And as part of this conversation, Adam talked about finding Harmony, suffocating Declan.
Hands over the mouth, I stated.
And with the hands over the mouth, Declan was turning blue.
Lips were blue,
Lips
is
were
what
blue.
I recollect.
Good job not letting
5 months old at the time.
the prosecution testify.
Declan, roughly something like that, yeah.
You said that he made a comment and sounded cocky.
Yes.
Also could have been sarcasm.
Not in my opinion, if that's what you're asking.
It was just a joke defense. It was just a joke when I said I bashed her around the house. Fuck
You
you.
express concern regarding Declan and the blue lips.
Yes.
You later made a report to DCYF.
Yes.
That report was approximately a week later.
Correct.
Would July 29th of 2022, I'm sorry, July 29 of 2019, would that sound correct to you?
Roughly about a weekish later, 7-8 days or something. Is that what? Yeah, approximate, I guess. It's going back a while.
Roughly 7 to 8 days, and this was after you had returned to Florida?
After I was back in
I'm sorry,
New
back-
Hampshire, right? Is that what you're asking? After I came home?
Right. But
Yes.
you didn't go back you didn't stay at the house except for that one night. Did you go back to Florida or did you go back to Massachusetts?
No, I went to Massachusetts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I don't have anything further.
Just briefly, please, Your Honor. Mr. Montgomery, about that. You just asked a moment ago whether Like you were asked a moment ago with regards to Adam, you were asked a moment by Attorney Brooks about him sounding cocky and whether that might also be some sort of sarcasm. When he said, I bashed her all around the fucking house, did that sound like sarcasm to you?
No,
And when you asked Harmony, oh my God, what the fuck happened to you? Were you asking about her eye?
I did. I was.
At any point, did the defendant tell you that he had just jerked her away from Declan?
No.
And at any point when you were asked a moment ago on cross-examination about Declan's lips being blue, that's, I want to make sure that's clear. That's not something that you saw, right? That's what the defendant told you had happened.
Yes, correct. That's what I was told.
From the defendant, that's what he says.
Correct.
Let me ask one last question with regards to your understanding. When Adam said that he bashed them all around the fucking house, do you feel that you have somehow conflated what Adam had said?
Conflated? Could you explain, please?
Confused one action for another? Do you think that Adam, when he
Say
said
that-
about, yes.
State it again,
So let me
please.
restate that. With regards to confusing one issue for another, or conflated what Adam had said, with regards to that, do you feel that you may have been mistaken that when he said that he bashed her all around the fucking house with regards to the black eye, that he was actually talking about just jerking her away from Declan?
I wasn't confused.
Thank you. No further questions.
Nothing further.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is just a little past 12:30, so this is a perfect time to break for lunch. I will remind you that you are not to discuss this case, not with each other or with anybody else. While I've indicated to you that you can check your phones on a break or during lunch, you cannot read any media. Make sure all your banners or notifications are turned off. You are not to view any media related to this case. Don't do any independent research. Don't look up any of the names that you've heard throughout this case. And I'll have you come back at 1:30 and we will resume evidence at that time. Please rise for the jurors, everyone.
Let's just keep watching to see if the court has any conversations with the jury out of the room. Maybe there will be an update on why the fuck Adam isn't there or what they think of Adam not being there. I know what we all think. It was a good redirect. You know, I want to say I think he was a good witness.
You may be seated. He may be excused if any objection? No objection. Okay, yes, he's excused. With the understanding, Attorney Agati, that excused means he's not going to be called now or later.
There's no good reason for it, Delaney. He's just a bitch.
Okay. So that is what I mean by excuse. So if we don't all agree that that's what excuse means, then we should maybe revisit that after the lunch break, or so that everybody can take a look at it. Okay. Did we need to address any other matters now?
I think, Your Honor, just after the break, we might want to address that one thing with regards to Michelle Raftery, excuse me. But other than that, no defense counsel.
You mean Michelle Raftery?
Michelle Raftery, I apologize. I think other than that, Your Honor, the other things can certainly wait until after the break. That's why right now that we
Okay, I just don't want to, I guess I want to know what we're going to talk about so that we can make sure we're starting on time with them. So if we want to have some legal arguments about something, let's talk about what that will be, and then I can tell you when you should come back so that we can do that rather than holding them.
can just have a look.
Sure.
All right, so nothing super exciting is happening there. You know, I think the laws vary from state to state on whether you can force a defendant to be in court. And apparently, in the state of New Hampshire, this incarcerated prisoner has the choice of whether to refuse transport to go to court. So it's shocking to me, but it's it is a legal right in some places for you to be able to, he's essentially pleading the fifth, maybe not the right way to say it. Please remember, folks, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not any of those things. I just watch these things closely, and things vary from state to state, and laws can be so technical. I'm just going to see if they're saying anything important.
She may be a witness depending on what the defendant puts forward in their case in chief, if they choose to present, if he chooses to present. So I would say that's issue number one that we would have to discuss. Issue number two is, at this point, based upon the defendant's representations with regard to Anthony Padero and his behavior as alleged, Mr. Padero, I believe, already has counsel for a different matter. But we should probably set some time aside to have a very quick Richards hearing, because we do anticipate that Mr. Padero is going to be called as a witness in this case.
Do you have any sense of when you might call him? I mean,
Not this week.
They're just talking about scheduling when to schedule witnesses. It's, basically housekeeping matters. I just want to say, Teresa says waiving defendant's appearance at trial must be by stipulation, and the prosecutor, unless he or she is inexperienced, may refuse. That may, I don't know. I don't know what the actual technical rules are around it, but I can say, if I were a jury member, unless I was told specifically, you cannot infer anything negative about this, I would infer a great deal of negativity about the fact that he's not there. Yes, Christina, Harmony's mom, did testify. She, if you scroll back earlier in this stream, she did testify here. I mean, I've seen judges make defendants appear in court. I think there was an instance where Lori Vallow didn't want to show up for court, and the judge made her. She was playing these games. Apparently Letitia Stout was doing that. That's not surprising, considering Letitia Stout's crazy manipulative behavior. So I think that last witness, Kevin Montgomery, Adam's uncle, however you want to see him, whether you see him as part of the problem or not, he was a very effective witness. And we have to just remember, the witnesses are not the ones on trial here. The witnesses are the ones that are here to put the facts on the record as, evidence, right? And but I've noticed a lot, as I stream these trials, that people get real angry at the witnesses that are on the stand and saying, they should be just as culpable. And the thing is that it's Adam Montgomery that's at trial, not Kevin Montgomery, right? And these witnesses, I think they realize, I think they come in carrying the guilt of what more they could have done. There's always survivor's guilt in those situations. But you also have to remember that in those tight-knit family situations, especially when you're living together, you see that when an abuser gets mad, the abuse gets carried out on many, many people, not just, the person that they're mad at. Anger gets misdirected, right? So if you try to step in physically on your own or do something drastic on your own, you have to think about how that could potentially affect all the other people around them, right? When you have and I'm going to give you an online example of that happening. I streamed 14 hours of a hearing between Lana Oriani from Truth and Transparency and another YouTuber. Okay. And that streaming of her hearing was humiliating to her because she looked horrible. Lana from Truth and Transparency, she looked horrible. And she saw that I had a lot of people paying attention to this and a lot of people commenting on what an idiot she looked like. So when she reacted to that, do you think that she came out at me? Do you think that she responded by harassing me or abusing me, or actually harassing or abusing the person that was on the stand? No, what she did is she attacked an entirely different person on YouTube. She went on a full-on smear campaign against Alex Erickson that didn't end up working because it was fucking stupid. But that's what these types of abusers do. They look for the people who they can force the blame onto. And in the abuser's mind, it's always the victim's fault. It's your fault that and I'm thinking through the lens of Adam Montgomery now. Well, it's Harmony's fault that I gave her a black eye and I bashed her around the room because I was protecting my infant child from her evil ways of trying to cover his mouth because he was crying. And she knows that when you cry in this house, you get abused. You get abused. And I honestly don't see any excuses happening, and, by this, that just some observations about Kevin Montgomery. I know nothing of this guy except for what I saw on the stand, and same with the people in the jury box, right? So the people in the jury box are seeing just this man's testimony, and he did come across credible. He did come across credible. He answered his questions. He answered his questions just, he didn't embellish on his questions. He didn't allow the defense to try to twist his words and testify for him and get him to repeat their testimony of what he said. And let me just make sure that, let me see what they're saying in court here.
So he to the jury that their report was unsubstantiated. And I would just say, Your Honor, this would be the equivalent of asking an officer who testifies their ultimate opinion for innocence of the defendant.
Okay, they're fighting over they're fighting over witnesses or something like that. So, these are complicated matters, but ultimately the person who dealt the final blow was Adam Montgomery. He's the one who most probably murdered this child. Absolutely just abused and murdered this child. So, sorry, hold on a minute.
The statements that he was provided by the statements that he was provided that led to his investigation, the statements, the witnesses that he spoke to, what he was told, what he reviewed.
So you want to get into the whole investigation that led to the determination that it was unsubstantiated.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, let me see what the defense has to say, and then I may have some more questions.
All right, it doesn't sound. And then yes, Johnny, she already did, but it failed because it was really a dumb move. It was really stupid. She tried to blame her for something that was verifiably not her, and it was shut down quick. But she's a fucking, that's what abusers do. That is what abusers do. So they are on their lunch break. I'm going to shut down this stream and start up for the afternoon when they start up, and I will do everything in my power not to be late like I was this morning. I apologize for that. I got up and I was just about to hit start right on time. And then all of a sudden, all these internet issues started and I had to restart everything. So I apologize for that. But please remember to hit the thumbs up on this stream. Consider becoming a member. And I'm going to schedule an afternoon session for when they come back after lunch, and we will be here together. And yeah, take your own breaks. If you're feeling any kind of way, if you feel sickness in your stomach, there's a reason for that. Whether it's from your own past or things that you've witnessed in the past, right? That's your body telling you have memories of something like this. And so take care of yourself. And just one real quick last time, I'm going to put in the National Domestic Violence Hotline in the chat. Please, please. Oh, thank you so much, Fruit Fly, for the gifted memberships. That is so appreciated. So appreciated. I'm glad you were here, Johnny. I know it's super late where you are. I'm going to show Fruit Fly a special clip for that. You get a special clip. You know what I think about getting gifted memberships? I think it's just
perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. Okay.
I think it's perfect. Perfect. All right. You are all amazing too. I want to thank you all for being so respectful. And I know that there are a lot of differing opinions in here, and that's fine. As long you are allowed to have a different opinion in my chat, as long as you're respectful about it. You can voice your opinion without being a jerk, right? We all can. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult, but we can. Anyway, I will see you after lunch. Okay. Take care of yourselves.